Rise and shine, boys and girls, because I know it's been a tough week, but you can still get out of bed at any time during the day, unlike Zeke Elliott, who I think is still trying to get off of the field after being absolutely blasted at the end of the San Francisco 49ers and Dallas Cowboys game, and probably the Giants team as a whole for just being mauled by the Eagles. In past that, we will talk about those games later on. Right now, this is the show intro. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to your favorite weekend shenanigans, hijinks podcast that we're here. We screw around a lot, but at the end of the day, we like to think we kind of know what we're talking about here on the show. Welcome to the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. As always, introducing you into the show in whichever ridiculous way that I can is Iceman Jerry. I'm joined, as always, by my two compatriots of chaos alongside me at the bottom of your screen. Look at that handsome devil himself, Justin Zucker. How we doing, brother?
Good. Always excited to talk some football, and we're almost there.
Yes, absolutely. The superb owl is almost upon us. But before we continue to talk about, games, owls, and of the like, we have a man who has muted himself for some reason. So quit with the shtick here, Podfather Rick. What do you got?
I realized I hadn't opened my drink and it was a can, so it was going to make the little can tab sound. So I'd rather not do that while we're on the air. So I want to be courteous while Justin was talking and introducing himself. And I love how Jared, you make up all these great introductions and all of that, and then you ask Justin how he's doing. It's like, no, I'm good. And then that's it.
You want me to lie?
No, dude. The point that I'm trying to make is that what it takes us 95 words to say, you convey in 3. So kudos to you for that. Brevity is the soul of wit.
The king of efficiency on the show is Justin, ladies and gentlemen. He knows
Absolutely.
How to get it all out. But as well, first off, very courteous of you, Rick. Although I'm sure there's probably at least one person out there who's been like, but I would have loved to hear the soda can open. But that could be for next time. Rick will probably interrupt me next time that happens, not Justin. He's way more courteous to Justin than myself. But irregardless of that, ladies and gentlemen, as the show entails, as the title of the show entails, we're here to talk about playoff football. Once again, the NFL divisional round has come and gone. 4 teams remain competing for the Lombardi Trophy. We're going to talk about those 4 teams a bit later on. But what we're mainly going to talk about first is how they got to that point in terms of NFL playoff talk. But there is a piece of news or two that happened. Especially one piece that affects these fine gentlemen here that we're gonna get to a bit later on in the show. But before we get to that, you guys know how the show works. Fun, football, chaos. We always start with the fun. And the newest addition to our cavalcade of fun that we have here on the show, Rick's mind-blowing fact of the week. Just like the Rant Podium, guys, it could be about football. It could be about pop culture. It could be about music. It could be about basically anything in the world at this point. So, Rick, please indulge us. Destroy my table varnish smooth brain with what you have here as a fact this week.
Well, off air, we mentioned we wanted the football fact, and there's a few that I have that are a little more topical for later on down the line, or even just a random general one. But I have this one for you that I think is pretty good since we're in playoff mode. This is about the legendary Hall of Fame career of Kurt Warner. Not the Kurt Warner with the C, but the Kurt Warner with the K. And you can see I'm doing K in sign language and C in sign language for those that know. So Kurt Warner, a 2-time NFL Associated Press MVP and a 3-time Super Bowl quarterback. 1 win, 2 other appearances. But in Kurt Warner's playing career, 124 games played, 116 games started. He only played 16 games in 3 seasons. Each of those seasons, he went to the Super Bowl. That's it. Every other season, he only played a max of, he played 15 in 2009 before he got hurt. He played 14 in 2007, but every time that he played 16 games and started 16 games, Kurt Warner was the quarterback in the Super Bowl for either the Rams or the Cardinals. 1999, obviously, of course, greatest show on turf, 41 touchdowns. 2001, 36 touchdowns, his 2 MVP wins. And then 2008, when he had 30 touchdowns for the Cardinals that almost won that Super Bowl over the Pittsburgh Steelers. One of the best Super Bowls of recent memory, by the way. Was also a Pro Bowler and Comeback Player of the Year. Started 16 games. So 3 times he did it, and in every single season, the Hall of Famer went to the Super Bowl. That, my friends, sponsored by Breton Multigrain Crackers. is your mind-blowing fact of the week.
I love the random sponsorship. That's not really a sponsorship that we're going to bring in on a weekly basis. I cannot wait to see how that evolves. I didn't realize that he only played 16. So basically, what you're telling me is, Rick, if they had just figured out a way to play him the entire year, every single time, Kurt Warner would have made it to the Super Bowl as much as Tom Brady. Is that what you're telling me?
Probably more, but yeah, if he had played 16 games every single season by divine intervention, he would have been in the Super Bowl every single time out. So, it's something. It really is something to behold. Because again, after that second Super Bowl with the Rams, he spent 7 years trying to get healthy and trying to get back into it. And then the 1 year that he was finally healthy enough to finish all of the games, they went 9-7, the Cardinals did, but they still got to the Super Bowl because Kurt Warner played all 16 games. I don't know if it's a direct correlation, but I mean, it makes sense to me.
Well, you could also correlate with the fact that Larry Fitzgerald was an absolute beast that postseason.
Oh, my God. Larry Fitzgerald was great. He was a great player.
Probably, I mean, Cooper Kupp from last year is up there, but Larry Fitzgerald, probably the best single postseason by a wide receiver ever?
I would think so. Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, I think to this day, he had the record for yards and receptions in that postseason run. I think Cooper Kupp beat one of those last year, but still,
I think he did. But still,
Jesus.
Yeah, Larry Fitz was incredible. So,
do we have that Arizona Cardinals Super Bowl team? We could just go up and down on that roster real fast.
You know what? I will pull that up right now because I am very curious to see this as well. So
I'll throw it to Justin real quick before you start naming names here, Rick. Justin, that Super Bowl between Cardinals and Steelers, a San Antonio Holmes toe tap and a James Harrison pick six away from the Cardinals winning the Super Bowl, and how different things would have been. Like Rick said, I agree. I think for me, it's one of my top 5 Super Bowls that I've ever seen. I'm assuming it's that way for you as well?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty young when it happened, as I'm sure were the rest of us. I was at a friend's house, and we were like, this game is over, and we left. And we didn't watch some of the fourth quarter until we heard cheering downstairs, and my friend said, I think that's the game. And of course, they're Giants fans, so they had no personal investment in the game. So we're like, let's just see what's happening. And all of a sudden, it was like a 1-score game. And I believe the Cardinals were driving at that point. And it was a wild game, though, from start to finish. I mean, it really looked like it was over quick. And Kurt Warner and that Cardinals team really made it a game. I just remember sitting in that room and being like, wow, what is happening right now?
Yeah. So, to Justin's point, yes, Pittsburgh led at the end of 3 quarters by a 20-7 margin in that game. But then you had an 8-play drive by the Cardinals, a 1-yard touchdown by Larry Fitzgerald from Kurt Warner, made it 20-14. Then you had a holding penalty on Justin Hartwig of the Steelers in the end zone, which led to a safety. The Cardinals got the ball back, had a 2-play drive with Fitz catching a 64-yard touchdown from Kurt Warner, putting Arizona ahead 23-20. And then, as we know, that final drive, Roethlisberger to Holmes, the connection in the end zone, 8 plays, 78 yards, took 2 minutes and 2 seconds on the clock, and that was the difference maker. This Arizona Cardinals 08 team is very interesting, Jared, to your point. So, obviously, Kurt Warner, the quarterback. His backups were Matt Leinart and Brian St. Pierre. The starting running back was Edgerrin James, with backup of a rookie by the name of Tim Hightower, who he was a good player. He was a really good player. He was. Wide receivers, you had Larry Fitzgerald and Anquan Bolden as your top 2. But you also had a couple other guys. Sean Morey was on special teams. He was a very good special teamser. Steve Breston from Michigan was really good. I want to go to their defensive lineman for a second because there was another rookie on this team. So Tim Hightower was a rookie on this team in the Super Bowl. They also picked in the second round, defensive end, a name you'll probably know because he's still in the league, Calais Campbell. He was a rookie on this team too. And so their linebacker core included Carlos Dansby, ex-Jet Victor Hobson, and their secondary had ex-Giant Antrell Roll. And the guy who was their first pick in the 08 draft was their 16th overall selection. Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie was the rookie corner for this Cardinals team. And we can't go without saying that Neil Rackers was the kicker and Ben Graham was the punter because, you got in special team guys. This was a pretty interesting team there, actually. It's even better when I name some of the coaches that are here, too. Ken Wisenhunt was the head coach. I guess he kind of flamed out a little bit. Todd Haley was the O coordinator.
Wow.
For this team. Their tight end coach was a guy named Freddie Kitchens. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. Their offensive quality control coach, Justin, as a Jets fan, this is going to be a name that you're going to probably remember if you were watching what I was watching back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Dedrick Ward was their offensive quality control coach. And their D-backs coach, he was a very young D-backs coach. This was a second stint with an NFL team. Terrell Austin was their D-backs coach. He went on to be the defensive coordinator at Florida University, and he's the current D coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. So this Cardinals team was really, really good, which is funny because they went 9-7 on the season and still won the NFC West by 2 games.
Wow.
Yeah.
God, the NFC West in the mid to late 2000s was just not good, eh?
No, they were not a good team. They were not a good division at all.
The Cardinals at 9-7, when the Seahawks made it, when we had the Beast Quake, or were they 7-9 that year, I think?
Yeah. Yep. They were.
There was a stretch of times where if you won 10 games in the NFC West, they basically won you the division.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. You didn't have to worry. Even 9 games, apparently.
They were the 4 seed in the playoffs, and they actually hosted 2 games that year. Because they played the 5 seed Atlanta Falcons in the first round. That was like their home game. Then they went to Carolina and smoked the Panthers 33-13. And then they hosted the 6 seeded Philadelphia Eagles. Because that year the Eagles had taken out the top seeded New York Giants.
Ooh.
The 4 hosted the 6, and it was the Cardinals over the Eagles in a 32-25 game, which was a harbinger of things to come because of how good that game was too. And then, they went to the Super Bowl, Superb Owl, and Pittsburgh Steelers. What a great game! Probably like you said, one of my top 5 Super Bowls that I've actually seen in my lifetime. The 2 Giants wins for me rank up there because of how close those games were. The 1 yard short, Mike Jones, Derek Mason or Kevin Dyson game, Titans Rams. Was right up there for me. And actually, my first football memory was the Brett Favre Desmond Howard touchdown and that Super Bowl when he took off his helmet and ran around the field with it. That was I thought Brett Favre was really cool. Unfortunately, he got a little bit more ornery and a little bit more ridiculous as he got older. But.
Yeah, and a little bit more thieving money from a state. But regardless of that, yes. Of course, outstanding future episode, future segment, probably for next week or something. 5 Super Bowls that we've enjoyed the most in our lifetimes.
Oh yeah, I think it's a good one. I really did. Well, because the thing is too, we'll have to see where this one goes because this could be up there as well if it's a really good game.
Very true. Very true. I mean, I'm certain, Rick, Rams Patriots Super Bowl, not the Tom Brady and Kurt Warner one. I'm talking about the Jared Goff Tom Brady one. Clearly, that's your top 5, right? 13-3. That gem.
No,
it was fantastic. I had a great time that day.
Well, yeah, you won money that night, so yeah, that's why it was good for you. But for the rest of us, for the rest of us, it was not so much.
It's probably Justin's number 5, just on the fact that he won alone.
Anyways, just on the fact that he won.
Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, we move on from that once again. Rick blowing our minds. Ladies and gentlemen, the ticker says it's up. Kurt Warner playing 16 games, Super Bowl appearance, collision course. That's how it goes. So, man, if only Kurt Warner could have just stuck it out a little bit more often, maybe he would have made 5, 6, 7 Super Bowl appearances. Who knows? But
still a Hall of Famer regardless.
Oh, of course. We move on from that. Again, newest edition from the last couple of weeks. It's already delivering. Speaking of delivering, this is consistently delivered on the show. We have Justin's games now. So, Justin, the first one. No trivia this week, ladies and gentlemen. I know. Rein in the booze. Okay, we're done. We don't accept the booze. Let's move on to a game of Would You Rather. Still a popular top-tier game because when it comes to Would You Rather, mainly between Would You Rather and Fact or Fiction, mainly Would You Rather, it's the segment where it really gets us arguing the most on this show, really for the most part, unless it involves Trent Baalke last week. But we're here to keep that discussion deep into the past. Let's continue things here. Justin, what do we got for our Would You Rather this week?
All right, so I'm gonna keep it pretty much simple. Who would you rather play in the Super Bowl? Who would you rather not play in the Super Bowl? Give me both.
Okay. Of the 4 teams that are remaining. Okay, I see.
Mhm.
I see. Is this based on currently how the teams are constructed, or is this like everyone's at full strength?
Right now.
We kind of
No
have to go
teams
with right
going in,
now.
given
Yeah.
all the information you already have.
Mhm.
Who would you rather play?
Well, it's an opt-out answer, I guess, but I would rather play the Chiefs right now in the Super Bowl. Because Pat Mahomes might not be 100%. And yeah, I know it's an opt-out answer, but like when you saw that game, once he got hurt, he was not the same guy. They still won because they have a lot of good pieces around them, but all it takes is pressure, especially on a quarterback with just one good leg, and you can get to him. So I wouldn't play them. I mean, I think that's also a defense that you could exploit. We saw the Jaguars; they didn't put up the points they needed to, but they put up points. I can't say the same thing for the Bills against the Bengals defense because I don't know what the hell happened there. I'm going to keep it AFC. I would not want to play the Bengals. I wouldn't because they look like they are on a mission right now. I mean, of all the teams that are there in the Final Four, you could pretty much argue, I think, that the Bengals are the hungriest franchise when it comes to they want the Super Bowl. Think about it. Philadelphia won it in 2018. Kansas City won it, I think, 2019, 2020, whatever it was. And San Francisco, even though it's been a while, they've got 6 to their name or 5 to their name. Cincinnati has 0.
Yeah.
The Bengals have no Super Bowls to their name. And Joe Burrow grew up in that Cincinnati region and knows the heartache and the hardship that they've gone through. He looks like he is Super Bowl or bust this year. This team is really scary on both sides of the ball. And I do not want to be the corner who looks across the line and sees Jamar Chase standing there in front of me because, I'm going to recuse myself from that game and go into the tent and say I have a concussion just from looking at him. So not a chance for me. So I'm sure there's arguments to make for the NFC teams too, but for me, I think that I do not want to play the Bengals in the Super Bowl, and I would, at least for now, because of Mahomes' injury and the defense is not as standard as up to its standards it should be. I would play the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I think I'd get a win off of them.
Okay. Well, I will say that, Rick, the one flaw I could pick out in your final reasonings there is that even with the concussion, the NFL would probably still make you play anyways. So you're a little bit off on that one. But aside from that, it's sound. So I actually agree with you on the who would I rather not play. I think Cincinnati is on a mission. I think this team has a Super Bowl window because of Joe Burrow, because of Jamar Chase, because it seems that for the last 2 postseasons now, this defense that is fine during the regular season just takes it up to another level come the postseason. In enemy territory, in big games against 2 teams that we have earmarked each of the last 2 postseasons as Super Bowl, like the destined winner out of the AFC. Last year with the Chiefs making it to the AFC title game, and this year with the Buffalo Bills. The whole, they have the emotional roller coaster. This is supposed to be a year where they could go through the AFC because it's supposed to be theirs for the taking. And they just win. You can't teach that. You just cannot teach that innate ability. So overall, I agree with you with the Bengals. I'm going to keep it to the NFC just so we can mention these teams. So between those 2, I would not want to face that San Francisco 49ers defense. I know the secondary is their weakness and the Eagles secondary is stronger than theirs, but there's just something about a front 7 that involves Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. I know he's not been that great, and I think even a bit injured this season, but Eric Armstead, the young defensive lineman they have that they got like 2 drafts ago. Is it Kinlaw, or am I confusing him with somebody else? It's either Chason or Kinlaw. They have one of those 2 because I know one of them's on the Jaguars. I always forget who went to what team. I don't, because they were literally like right next to each other for me for like defensive tackles in that mock draft 2 years ago.
Kinlaw. They have Kinlaw.
Javon Kinlaw. Okay, that defensive crew is just gangbusters. They can destroy anybody. And offensively, like it's very close between the Eagles and the 49ers. You got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on one side. You got Christian McCaffrey. You got George Kittle, you got Brendan Ayuk. And I know on the other side it's Dallas Goedert for the Eagles, but man, there's just something about that 49ers team. You want to talk about a team that is just being hot at the right time, a double-digit game win streak going into the NFC Championship game. You're at another level. And my thing is that they've won 2 playoff games, and their 2 playoff opponents were better than the 1 playoff opponent that the Eagles faced. I think we could base that off of the box score. I think we could base that off of how they played against their opponent. The 49ers have faced stiffer competition. Now, could you say that against them that, hey, they played 1 extra game, they're a little bit tired, Brock Purdy kind of looked like a 7th-round draft pick last week? All fair, but there's just something about that 49ers team. You want to talk about this team was a half of a fourth quarter, not even a full fourth quarter. They were half of a fourth quarter away from the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. And then Patrick Mahomes was Patrick Mahomes. So I would not want to face this 49ers team. On the flip side, I actually wouldn't hate my chances against the Eagles because I think you can rattle Jalen Hurts on the big stage. I really think you can rattle him. I think you could get that offense off kilter. The defense might be a little bit tough. There are some dogs on that defense. Like I said, I'm not going to deny it. 4 or 5 guys with double-digit sacks on the season. For them, I believe it's 4. First NFL team, I think, with 4 players with double-digit sacks in the regular season. I'm not saying this to disrespect them, but I think there is just something about you can get the Eagles off of their game plan, to me, potentially more than the 49ers. I think Kyle Shanahan is going to stick to his game plan. I think that team has a mentality about them, where with the Philadelphia Eagles, I think there are players with the mentality. I don't know if that full locker room is it. Because Jalen Hurts was just not that impressive in that Giants game. And of the 4 quarterbacks remaining, he's looked the least impressive in the postseason, straight up. Even with Mahomes being hurt, even with him having to leave for a sprained ankle, Jalen Hurts to me has been the most underwhelming of the 4 so far. Again, only 1 game sample size, but we have to go with what we have. So I would say that for me personally, the Philadelphia Eagles are the team out of the NFC I would more want to face, and the 49ers are the team I would least want to see.
Can I also just say, just a quick little shout out here to Brandon Ayuk, because if you recall, dear listeners and viewers, a long, long time ago, he was in our breakout episode. And what did he do this season? 78 catches, first 1,000-yard season in the NFL, and 8 touchdowns, all career highs. So we really do know our stuff. Shot across the bow at you, Adam Rank. But yes.
I mean, to be fair, for every Ayuk, there's a Cole Kmet Hui. Masterful.
Hey, Cole Kmet did have a good season too. It wasn't his fault.
Fair enough. So there are thoughts there, but overall, I think we can agree the Cincinnati Bengals are looking like a machine. That like they're firing right now, and it's going to take one of these last 3 teams to beat them. And I honestly, for me personally, I think this might be the best Final Four we've seen in a long time in the NFL.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Like I like you can any of these 4 teams can win the Super Bowl, and nobody's going to say they kind of got lucky here. No, these 4 teams win. It's like that was the best team this season, without a shadow of a doubt. So
I mean, minus the Bills, can you really argue that these are not the 4 best teams during the season?
Well, I mean, as the Bengals showed, clearly the Bengals should have been above the Bills this entire time.
Well, no. Look, all I'm saying is it would have been just as, it would have been just as not under. What's the word I'm thinking of? Not surprising if the Bills were there instead of the Bengals, or if the Bills were there instead of the Chiefs. Like we all knew that one of those teams was going to run into one of the other ones and not make the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
So to me, there were no surprises here for any of these teams. These are all 2-3 weeks left in the season. These are the teams you expected to be here at this point.
I think the best way to look at it also would be like if you went to look at last week, the divisional round, and let's say that the wild card round went chalk, and then your 8 teams remaining were Philadelphia playing Tampa and San Francisco playing Minnesota. Like this, regardless, though, Philadelphia and San Francisco would have gotten through regardless. And Kansas City, Jacksonville, that was the 1-4. Cincinnati, Buffalo was the 2-3. Yeah, Cincinnati 3-2, whatever it was on a coin flip. But at the same time, yeah, I agree. These are the 4 best teams. There's no – as good as the wild card teams were in the regular season, nobody really belonged on that big stage after last week. Like, nobody really did. So
you saw the difference between the wild card teams and the true best teams in the league this week.
Absolutely. I'm just waiting.
I didn't realize that. My bad. I normally stay unmuted actually most of the time. This was a rare mute for me. I don't know why.
Excuse yourself from the group. We'll just allow the show the rest of the way through.
The show's collapsing without me in it right now.
Wow.
I'm kidding, of course. You lads are outstanding. Amazing. Would you rather, Justin? Do we have another one, or are we moving on to Fact or Fiction?
Fact or Fiction.
Let's get it, ladies and gentlemen. The last of our trio of games. Normally we have a big four, but we have to settle for a big three this week. NFL Fact or Fiction. Let's go with it. Justin, what are we disproving like we're Mythbusters, and what are we giving a thumbs up for?
All right, let's give it a shot. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback left in the NFL now. The NFL playoffs today.
I mean, he's probably going to win the MVP. Like, if we're going by that logic, I know why, because Joe Burrow, like Chris Jones made the joke, Burrowhead Stadium, because the Bengals are undefeated since the Chiefs between the Mahomes and Burrow showdowns. Like, if we have, like, I love Joe Burrow, but if we have to go fully healthy, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL, bar none. Like, he is the best in the league. Joe Burrow can be number 2, and they could be your 1A, 1B, and I'm not even going based off of he's won the Super Bowl, he's done this, he's done that, he has the MVP compared to Burrow. It's just like, it's literally, I don't want to say it's a flip of a coin, but I think there is just a very tangible amount that puts Patrick Mahomes above Joe Burrow to me. Whether that wants to be what I just said, if you want to try to just go off of the resume, which I don't think is fair because Burrow's only in his 3rd year and Mahomes, this is year technically 6, but really only 5. So there's a 2-year gap there. And Joe Burrow's probably going to win an MVP over the next 2 or 3 seasons to even that out. I really hope at one point we just get the 2 of them sharing the award and then just go after it one after another. These are the 2 guys who the AFC has really gone through ever since Tom Brady left. And these are the 2 pillars of it. It's very close. And again, I love Joe Burrow. Don't get me wrong, but I think I need to still give the slight edge to Mahomes. But a Burrow AFC championship game here once again, I think makes him the best quarterback in the league.
Mahomes is the only one of the 4 that's won a Super Bowl of the 4 that are remaining. So if you're going by simple proxy logic, then Mahomes is the best quarterback of the 4 remaining. But you know me, I never like going by simple logic. So let me try and break this down from bottom to top. I will do the Dan Orlovsky ranking the quarterbacks that are remaining. I think that after last week, I'm going to amend what I said when I said Brock Purdy is the number 1 quarterback in the NFC remaining. Jalen Hurts didn't have a great game, but he accounted for 3 touchdowns. And he was on an MVP trajectory until the very end of the year. So,
you don't say, Rick. Interesting.
Okay. I think we may have to temporarily remove him from the from the fray. Yeah, was he about to be so incendiary with his quarterback rankings that his Wi-Fi is like, hold on, the people aren't ready for this?
I think he was going to put Brock Purdy at 4.
Oh,
which is a big jump from compared to last week.
We're back.
So, am I right, Rick? Where are you putting Brock?
Brock's a 4. Yeah.
No wonder your Wi-Fi stopped you.
Yeah, it did. Brock's at 4. And his detriment, though, this was arguably the first game that Brock Purdy looked mortal, I think, compared to the rest of the season. Jalen Hurts, I put him at number 3 because I think the top 2 are Burrow and Mahomes. I think Burrow's number 1 right now. I get the idea that Mahomes is, when healthy, the best quarterback remaining, but he's not. And right now, the best quarterback is Joe Burrow. He's arguably the most dynamic quarterback of the 4 remaining, and the guy who I would trust to lead my team into a Super Bowl. So I think it'll be a great matchup tomorrow, but you got to say this. If Burrow beats Mahomes again in the AFC title game again in Kansas City again, but that's Joe Burrow's game. Joe Burrow's the guy who is not going to be wavering under the pressure. I mean, you saw it a little bit last week when Mahomes got hurt and they had to take him out. He was acting a little like he wanted to go back into the game, but let's be honest here. Chad Henne actually looked pretty good backing him up, and so I mean, I'll throw props his way. Chad Henne's number 5 on this list. You know, of the best backups that are out there, I'll put Chad Henne number 5. Absolutely. But that's saying something that, like, you know, a good quarterback to me is somebody who, when they're not in the game, the offense loses a step. It didn't lose a step with Henne there. So I think you could put as good as Mahomes is, and Mahomes is good. You could put any quarterback in this system, and they would probably have a career year. I mean, I hate to bring him up, but look at Seahawks Ring of Honor candidate Geno Smith. You know, you put him in Pete Carroll's system, and the guy throws for 4,200 yards and wouldn't come back player of the year. You know, a quarterback with the right system, and Henne has been there for 8 years now as their backup, or something like that. I put Burrow at number 1, and if Mahomes finally beats him, then I will change my rankings up again. But for me, Burrow's number 1.
I mean, you're wrong, but no, I'm kidding.
As my mother once said to my brother-in-law, you're entitled to your incorrect opinion.
Oh man, I mean, I will say this. Like, again, I don't think you can go wrong with either Mahomes or Burrow. I just don't think that's possible. These are the top 2 quarterbacks in the league right now. I think we can firmly agree on that. I think the real conversation is who do we put, like, who's right below them, and how many AFC quarterbacks are we going to name before we finally get to one in the NFC? I think that's the bigger question here.
Well, yeah.
Because who would you guys say? I know this is a little bit deviation here, but I'm assuming we're done with fact or fiction. So, like, this is just like a quick brain test. But, like, they're the top 2. Are Josh Allen and Justin Herbert your guys 3 and 4, or is there somebody else you put before them?
Well, Josh Allen, I would think, has to be in the top 3.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about Herbert. Herbert had a decent year. I know there were a lot of injuries and things like that. I'm not sure he makes my top 5 at this point. There's so many other guys that are performing at a high level. Their teams are winning more games. It's not just about stats. You know, you got to look at guys like Tua, who were, when he was on the field, he had the stats and his team had a higher winning percentage. You know what I mean? Even Dak. I mean, for all their faults and all the things that were wrong with the Cowboys this year, Dak is still performing at an incredibly high level. Yeah, you can credit the turnovers and you could say all these things, but they had a better record than the Chargers this year. I'm pretty sure he passed for more yards than Herbert did. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm sorry, more touchdowns. Definitely not more yards. More touchdowns than Herbert this year. But, you know, it's a question. And then there's got to be some NFC guys that I'm sure are part of the thing too. I can't tell if Rick is just disapproving or he's frozen with that face.
Yeah, I can never really tell at this point.
Yeah, no, definitely frozen. He would have said something. But yeah, I don't necessarily know if I would put Herbert in that top 5 at this point.
That's fair. No, that's why I'm asking. Like that. That's why, because even with last week's performance that we are going to talk about here, at the end of the day, people are still going to put Josh Allen in their top whatever. So it all comes down to the conversation of if he's still in your top 3 or top 4, like who else joins there? Because we were talking about the AFC quarterbacks before this postseason heavily. The Podfather's back. Rick, did you hear any of what Justin had to say? Justin
Herbert was 2nd overall this season in yards thrown.
Yeah, no, I said touchdowns.
Yeah,
yards.
I mean, I don't know. The eye test for me is talking about, you know, considerable wins and important games that you've won as well. And I mean, Mahomes and Burrow clearly number 1, number 2. I don't know of an NFC quarterback that can probably crack the top 3. I think Josh Allen's a fair bet at number 3, but then 4 or 5. It's interchangeable, really. I mean, do you still put Aaron Rodgers in the top 5? You probably have to, because he may have had a down year, but is he still a good quarterback? Based upon statistics, sure. But he's old and he's ornery, so I don't know. You know, do you put Tom Brady there? He's old, but he still got Tampa Bay somehow to the postseason. He can still go. You know, do you put Russell Wilson there? No, never. I'm kidding.
No, never.
I'm gonna make Jerk real mad.
Ryan Tannehill.
You know who was top 5? You know who was top 5 in passing yards and touchdowns this year?
Kirk Cousins.
Ooh.
Yeah.
They won 13 games.
They did.
Look, they didn't win when it counted, sure. But you want to talk about, winning when it counted. Herbert and the Chargers blew a 27-point lead. At least their game was competitive.
Okay, so the question then is, if we're doing this, what number is the top NFC quarterback in your mind?
I have no idea. I've been saying we should have done this since before the season started. I wanted to do a quarterback ranking, a whole show, 32 quarterbacks. Who is in your top 5? Let's go through it. Why are they there?
I mean, we didn't have enough time just before the season.
No, that's fine. We'll put
Justin, we have a whole offseason to do that.
That's what's going to happen. I'm not going to do it now, though.
No,
and I did have one more factor fiction.
No, that now that you brought it up, you have to give us your top 32. No, I'm kidding. Of course.
And Zach Wilson's got to be number 12. I don't know why.
Also, because he looks like a 12-year-old.
Yes,
I think we should do a preseason one, and
end of the season, and compare and contrast
after the Super Bowl.
I'm cool with that. Okay. Next season.
Well, the funny part's going to be, if teams draft a quarterback this year, will that new rookie slide into the spot where the established veteran who's leaving is?
You're going to have to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have to take that into account. Like, what do you think the upside is? But that'll be interesting. Yeah. But Justin, you said it. I did hear you. Don't worry. We have another factor fiction. Let's run with that.
All right. You no longer need a bell cow running back to win a Super Bowl. A lot of the teams that are left over, I would say it's actually probably even. There's 2 big name running backs that are still left, albeit one did not have as good a season as he's used to, Joe Mixon and Christian McCaffrey. The other teams don't have that big name back. The Chiefs really going with Isaiah Pacheco and CEH and Jerick McKinnon in a committee, running back by committee, which is very similar to the Eagles as well, who have Jalen Hurts rushing the ball a ton. Then they have who are their running backs?
Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell.
Yeah.
Even Dallas Goedert on a jet sweep every now and again.
So, guys, do you need a top running back to win a Super Bowl?
Ugh.
Sadly, no. I'll take this one. You don't, because this was a trivia question previously in the season, but the highest cap hit it was ever highest cap hit or salary was the question for the Super Bowl
running back against the cap to win a Super Bowl
over the last I think you said since 2010 maybe
to lead their team in rushing.
Yeah, so you sadly don't need it.
Was a receiver.
Yes, it was. So Percy Harvin.
Percy Harvin. We're depending on how long this show goes in the future, because we're just making future plans here. We're going to have episodes where we randomly dissect random players. I think Percy Harvin needs to be on that list because he should have been better than what he was.
That would be a good segment for Rick. Hey, here's a player you forgot about, and then he'll just go off
and just how good they were.
I've already got my week 1 pick, by the way. I already do. Stedman Bailey will be week 1.
Okay.
Yeah, he was a beast in college. He certainly was. But to continue your question, Justin, you don't need one anymore. It's the NFL has made it clear that yes, some running backs are going to end up getting paid. I hope every athlete gets paid. So I want Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley to make their cash this offseason. They vehemently deserve it, considering the carcass of an offensive play calling mind that is Josh McDaniels that Josh Jacobs had to deal with, and the fact that Saquon Barkley helped Daniel Jones look good this season. So I think that they should still get paid, but we know how it works. Running back is the position where you're going to get the most workload damage to your body before you even get to the NFL. You look at a lot of the guys who either are left or were eliminated, maybe even the eliminated guys. We don't even need to keep it strictly postseason. But think about Derrick Henry, the amount of carries that he took in high school and college before he got to the NFL. Think about Ezekiel Elliott and how he was the absolute beast on those Ohio State teams when he was there. These guys are getting so much wear and tear before they get to the league, and then their teams just run them into the ground. DeMarco Murray had his career high in carries his last year in Dallas. He got paid. That definitely had a little bit due to the reason why he failed in Philly ultimately. Now, the fact that the offensive play calling was not suited to his running style also has to do with it. I feel like the thing is that when running backs do get paid, if it's a new running back to a new team, not like Derrick Henry was, but if it's a running back going to a new team, I feel like nowadays they try to make the running back play how the coach wants them to. You need to fit my style, not I need to make this worthwhile. We need to find a way to play to your strengths. So maybe that's why Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs might struggle next year, because if they go to the wrong team that doesn't play call the way they run, they are going to. So I just don't think you need that top end running back anymore. I think there's still like a desire for them. I personally still have a desire for top end running backs. I love them, but I think the NFL has made it clear, like, yeah, we'll pay running backs here and there, but if you're paying your running back, unless you have a rookie quarterback on those cheap contracts, you're probably not going to go far. And if you do, it may not be because of the running back.
So I'm going to disagree with you, and I'm going to use an analogy to kind of think about it like this. You don't necessarily, if you're buying a car, everybody wants the flashy speedsters, the sporty cars, the Lamborghinis, the Maseratis. That's like your wide receiver or your flashy quarterback. Everybody wants one of those. But everybody needs the car that's going to get them from point A to point B safely and take a beating, but at least, last 120, 140,000 miles, like a Toyota Camry or a Honda Civic. That's your running backs. Running backs are like your fugly sedans, if you will. They're not the cars that are the most stylish. They're not the chick magnet cars, but they're the ones that will last on the road for 10 to 15 years or so. Every team doesn't want a high leverage running back, but they need one. Even the guys that are not going to be here, that are not going to be like the main, like the bell cow backs that you think are going to be bell cow backs, every offense needs to have a running back that can dispel a passing play. Because if you throw 65 passes and only run the ball twice, your offense looks too predictable. So I think the term bell cow running back has changed somewhat, because it's not the running backs like the Emmitt Smiths or the Walter Paytons of the world. It's not like the guys who are going to get the ball in a 3-and-out series. They get the ball every single time. It's not like that anymore. But you need a change of pace. You need a change of style running back. And I think you need a running back of some sort. He might not be your overall. He might not get 35 carries in a game, but the majority of your running plays are going to go through him. So I think you do need that. I think the teams that have the running backs by committee are going to run into a problem, because the question really then becomes, well, who's the guys they're going to go with consistently? Because the guys then that are your change of back and change of pace guys are going to want to leave to go be a feature back somewhere else. That's why guys like Sony Michel have bounced around the league so much, because he wasn't the feature back in New England because you had LeGarrette Blount still there. But then he went and tried to go feature back somewhere else. So I think it's an interesting question, because I think you're looking at
rough day.
I was gonna say, is this a new record?
What is it? 4 now? 3?
I think so. Maybe 3. Yeah, I think we're at 3.
Poor guy. Family.
I definitely saw. I think that was a headphone being chucked right there.
I vanished.
Rick is a superpower.
Yeah.
He can teleport.
What if he just talks with the voice of God, like off cam for a moment? Will that make the Wi-Fi work better?
The Emperor Penguin marches 45 miles on the Antarctic coast, looking for the water and food. Basically, that's what it is. No. So the point that I was trying to make, and actually it's something I found really interesting too. Do you guys know? And I'll take the trivia mantle for this week. Do you guys know the last time that a winning Super Bowl running back rushed for over 100 yards? 2006. Dominic Rhodes.
Wow.
113 yards in the win over the Bears. By the way, Thomas Jones ran for 112. Since 2006, no team that has won the Super Bowl has had a running back rush for over 100 yards. At least what I'm looking at. Because I don't think 19 or 20 it was the same way. But, yeah. Dominic Rhodes. And I'll go back further. The most rushing yards in a Super Bowl by a winning team, Timmy Smith of Washington rushed for 204 in the year that they beat Denver. So
what a bygone era.
Exactly. So, again, it's changed, but you still do need a running back of some capacity. I just think the term bell cow back is changing, because it's not so much the majority of the load of your offense. It's the majority of the load of your running plays. That is what the bell cow back gets now. So I think you do still need one, but it's not the way it used to be.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. That's right. Again, look, you're talking to someone who I would love a resurgence for the running back. I would love for us to get a running back that absolutely dominates as Rick leaves again, 4 times. I would be a massive fan ultimately at the end of the day if we do get a resurgence with the running backs because I feel it's only fair. At the same time, like I do see Rick's point. I think we need to start changing the terminology a little bit. And I also think that I think we need a evolution in the NFL with how running backs are being handled now. Because I think it is very much against running backs in today's game more than any other position. We always talk about how the rules have changed to protect the quarterbacks. I know there's nothing you can do to protect the running backs, quote unquote. But at the same time, like it just, I don't know. I don't know if it's a play calling thing. I don't know if it's a style thing. I just don't know what it is. But like the running game has completely changed from what it once was. And like there are very few guys that are of that old mold. Like Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Nick Chubb, they're an outlier now in today's game compared to if those guys were in the 90s, like they would be the beasts of the NFL, especially Derrick Henry back then. Oh my God. But like it's just a completely different game nowadays. And I hope we could get a change in it, but knowing NFL, probably unlikely. So it's sad because, I shed a tear for the running backs like I would for the kickers and the punters. I love running backs. I love all the positions that everybody else wants to dunk on. I don't know. That's just my thing for that. Anyways, moving on from that. Justin, outstanding job, by the way. Once again, with your games as always. And Rick bringing the trivia this week. Who knew? So next time Justin can give us trivia, Rick, that's on you.
It's fine with me.
Perfect. So let's move on a little bit. We are going to talk about the games that happened this weekend, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to do a quick rapid fire through the division round. But there was some news that we have to talk about. We've kind of been staying away from some of the rumors because they're rumors. Like, is there always fire when we see smoke? Who knows? When will Derek Carr be let go of Vegas? When will Tom Brady officially buy his house in Las Vegas to play for the Raiders? When will DeAndre Hopkins get traded to insert name of random team that you want him to go to here? What we can confirm, though, is that the Carolina Panthers have a new head coach. Frank Reich just got fired by the Colts this past season for Jeff Saturday, which hindsight 2020, they probably should just let him ride the year out. He got hired by the Carolina Panthers very quickly. The Super Bowl didn't even end. I would have at least expected teams to wait until after the Super Bowl. But yeah, the Panthers got their guy, ? Who knows? I mean, now it's going to be a real interesting process, to say the least. Justin, I want to throw it to you because I know Rick has been chomping at the bit for this one, so I want to toss it to you first here. Your reaction to Frank Reich being hiring, what is the logic to you behind them going with him?
So actually, when I first saw this news, I thought it was breaking as he was being signed as the offensive coordinator, which I thought was a fantastic signing. I really actually was hoping the Jets would go after him. I think he does really well with young running backs, and I think he could quarterbacks. And I think he would have been very good for whatever they try to do, whether it's keeping Sam Darnold, going with PJ Walker, or drafting a quarterback. As the guy who's going to be the head coach there, I don't love it as much, but I understand what they're going for. Again, it's more of a development thing. They want to find a quarterback finally and get their system rolling. They've had a good defense for a very long time. They have decent skill position players, although they did trade Christian McCaffrey. I do expect them to go after some running backs, even though they did have production at that spot even after the fact. But yeah, it was a really interesting signing for me. I'm not sure I would have made that move so immediately, but I understand what the Panthers are trying to do. And now, if they don't immediately sign Sam Darnold, we know the path they're trying to take, and it's going to be drafting a quarterback as soon as possible in the draft, maybe even trading up for one, which would be very, very interesting to see.
I was going to say, with this hiring now, this has to create the ripple effect of what you need for the organization, top down now. And that includes finally trying to get a quarterback in there. But as I don't know how often we've discussed it on the show. I think maybe it's more so been like a text exchange between us. But this is not the same quarterback draft class that was originally promised before the season. Like a lot of guys have chosen to go back to school for one more year. Guys who we're looking forward to, we have to remember what class they're in. Like I thought Caleb Williams was coming out this year, but then I remembered he was a true freshman when he took over. So this was only a sophomore year. So he's coming out next year. Like this is not the same draft class. Way back in like September, October, people were like, oh, this is going to be like a 5 or 6 first round draft class. Is only 3, I think.
No, there's probably somewhere, there's 4. There's 4 certainties in the first round. It's Will Levis,
Yeah.
C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, and Anthony Richardson from Florida.
See,
Maybe
Richardson's the one that I've been flipping back and forth on. I think so. I've been seeing people rate him as a second rounder.
But I think there'll be a team that will jump for a first rounder. Maybe a guy like Tanner McKee from Stanford's in number 5, but you're right. This was a class that included Spencer Rattler, Phil Jerkovic, Tyler Van Dyke, and those guys all went back because they had terrible years or they wanted one more shot. So yeah, you're gambling on Stroud or Young or Levis, who are all good quarterbacks, but is that the position that Carolina needs the most currently?
Yes.
But this is also a team that just drafted Matt Corral last year. So
look, you don't know what you have in Matt Corral. I know he was injured. He missed the whole season. You have to make that decision now. Because if you're going to have that highly touted pick, I believe they're 9th in the draft at this point.
I think they're 7th, but yeah, somewhere around there. Top 10.
Either way, they're in prime position to trade. They're going to have some cap space. They're going to have some capital. This is the draft class. Even with all those, players going back, those were all second level players at that position.
Yeah.
The top 4 guys are still coming out. And I know Richardson, you said, is going back and forth. I've really mostly seen him in the first round. In fact, I believe in Mel Kiper's draft, he had those 4 guys going in the top 15.
Yeah.
So, I expect quarterbacks to go high. I expect them to go early. And I do expect them to be major players in this draft and in the season next season. It's more of where do you think that you're going to be able to be in position to get one of these guys? And can you make it work afterwards? And I think Frank Reich is Carolina taking a legitimate shot at finding the right guy to develop this quarterback.
I just, there's things to me about it that just scream of the old boys club all over again. Frank, no, okay. Yeah. I mean, Frank Reich's got a property in Charlotte. Like, he's got a home in Charlotte. So it's an easy commute for him. Frank Reich was the first ever quarterback for the Panthers. So it's a win in that regard. But then you bring up the point of the matter where it's like, oh, the Panthers just hired Frank Reich's daughter to be in their marketing department. And I'm like, but how does that not affect the way that you're going to hire somebody? And maybe this is me just having a little too much of a tinfoil hat on, and I would understand that. But
Rick, we always want you to wear the tinfoil hat.
I'll try to build one for the Super Bowl. But didn't Steve Wilkes do a good enough job to get something?
Well, look,
I know it's difference of philosophy. It's the defensive mind versus the offensive mind, which I get that. But you have to at least give some credit where credit is due. And I understand the concept of Justin, I agree with you. When I heard Frank Reich's name, I thought, oh, Wilkes is going to be the permanent and Reich's going to be the offensive coordinator, because that would make the most sense.
Would have been a great move.
It would have been a phenomenal move. But now Frank Reich is going to be the head guy. Who's going to be his offensive coordinator? But he'll still probably want to call the plays, maybe. And who's going to be on defense? And this team that rallied around Steve Wilkes and almost got to the playoffs with Steve Wilkes. And I get it. There have been exchanges where you've seen, oh, there are guys who are shocked, but they're happy that Frank Reich's their head coach. How much of that do you think is like PR bluster? I can imagine there's a lot of people who are not very happy with this hire. And listen, results matter. Results matter. So if Frank Reich gets them to a 12-win record next year, no problem. But it's just the way that the hiring was done and the outside ramifications of it that really just throw you for a loop sometimes, that really just make you question some things a little bit. I don't know. That's just
as much as I think that Steve Wilkes did a decent job and he could have earned himself a spot, there's plenty to argue against it. I mean, look, they were in playoff position and blew it. You know what I mean? They, as a defensive guy, in a game that meant making the playoffs or not making the playoffs, they let Mike Evans have three touchdowns and 200 yards after not doing anything for like 4 straight weeks. They just unleashed the guy.
But
they
J.C. Horn was hurt, though. So if he was out there at full strength, it might have been a different case.
You can't, as a coach, you're not making excuses for guys that that aren't there. You have to do your best with the players that are there. You think Brian Daboll didn't want to play more games with all of his starters this year? But guess what? They put together a decent enough roster, and they put together a resume, and they made the playoffs, even missing Adoree Jackson and McKinney for how many games? Like, look, they were in position and they blew it. And as unfair as it might be, you have to be able to make that argument that says, hey, maybe this is not the right guy moving forward. And in an increasingly more offensive league where you need that top quarterback to make the playoffs, to go far in the playoffs, and to ultimately win a championship, they're not doing it with Steve Wilks. Steve Wilks is not the guy that's going to develop, even if it's Sam Darnold next year. He's not Sam. They're not going to make it to the Super Bowl with a guy like that helming your offense, because the fact is, even if you're a defensive guy, you're the head coach. So, look, maybe bringing Frank Reich in there will give Sam Darnold a chance to develop, and then they could draft a quarterback, or they can have Corral sit behind him, maybe trade back and get some picks and expand upon that team. But the point is, you needed someone in there to fix your offense. And as much as you're afraid it might go the Dolphins' way, where they went from a top 5 defense to a bottom 5 defense, you got to think that your players there are going to be good enough, and Frank Reich's going to put the right system there to make that defense at least top 15. Because they had the players. They were good last year on defense.
Yeah.
Struggled on offense a lot of the time. They lost that Tampa Bay game on defense. Sam Darnold played a good game. And I know he threw a couple interceptions down the stretch. They still had a chance at the end of the game. They lost that game on offense.
I just think, you go from a 1-4 record, to being on the doorstep of the playoffs. Yeah, results didn't go their way, but from 1-4 and firing rightly your head coach Matt Rule, which you were very happy about, to on the doorstep of a playoff berth, that at least in some way merits some sort of a pat on the back, not a kick in the ass on the way out. So I don't know.
Look, I don't think look, again, he's going to be a guy that's going to have a better job going. I know he was a defensive coordinator. He's probably going to be a defensive coordinator again. He'll probably be in a bigger system. He'll probably be closer to an assistant head coach. And if his defense is good next year, that's going to be one of those guys that's up for a head coaching job again next year. But there was too many factors against him, I think, that contributed to him not being the guy there. And I think one of them is the crippling need for that team to have a quarterback. I mean, if you really think about it, especially if Brady leaves, the top quarterback in that division is going to be there for a long time. Yeah. I mean, there really is no established quarterback there. Who do you have? The kid from Cincinnati who was drafted
Desmond Ritter and Mariota.
Dalton
in Atlanta.
Dalton and Jameis Winston in New Orleans. You don't know who you have in Tampa Bay. If Carolina could get a legitimate quarterback, if they can get something out of Sam Darnold for the next 5 years, what's to say they're not the favorite to win their division going forward? They need to come in and develop that quarterback. And again, I would have been perfectly fine, and I would have even given a much bigger stamp of approval if they said Frank Reich is going to be the offensive coordinator. But that's the guy that was going to get head coaching interviews. They brought him in. Yeah. They said, we don't want you to leave. You're our guy. You're a franchise guy. You've been here since the beginning. We want you back. And look, he was a very good head coach in Indianapolis for a lot of years. You know what I mean? I mean, I know he's only there for 5 years, but
every year with a different quarterback.
Every year they got a quarterback and they said, wow, this is going to be a team that challenges. And they got unlucky with their quarterbacks. I mean, look, Carson Wentz collapsed. Phillip Rivers was good, but he was on the backswing of his career. Andrew Luck retired. Jacoby Brissett was okay in relief, but he wasn't the guy. And then this year with Matty Ice, who just didn't have anything left in the tank. I mean, they were always a quarterback away, and they were taking swings in the wrong direction, which, again, I don't know if that's a Frank Reich issue. That seems more of like a general management issue.
Right.
So I think Frank Reich was a pretty good head coach. He knows how to build a team. And look, it could be a very good signing for the Carolina Panthers. I'm surprised that it happened this way.
Right. I get what you're both saying. My thing with the Frank Reich signing is that this guy got fired just months ago and that he's already going to be a head coach again. And I know that's not the first time this has happened, but I think part of what Rick is trying to say is that Frank Reich getting this opportunity so soon after getting fired compared to, like, let's be real here. Like, I understand what you're saying, Justin, but Frank Reich, like, this was not a good year for him at the end of the day. Like, no ifs, ands, buts. It was a terrible year in Indy. And normally a guy, once they get fired, unless it's a guy with such long tenure like Andy Reid in his case when he was let go by the Eagles, and the very next season he became the Chiefs head coach, like that, this is not a guy with that kind of resume, with that kind of tenure, with that kind of cachet to his name. Where I know Frank Reich, we could say, well, he was a solid head coach. He won the division. I think it was twice when he was with the Colts. It just kept coming down to the quarterback. Well, now through the Carolina Panthers, if this is your signing, you have to make the investment in the quarterback. And so that's why part of the reason, I mean, I know you guys kind of already said what you would do, or at least gave an idea, but I think if you're the Panthers, you need to go all in on if you're going with Frank Reich, you need to give him what he never had in Indianapolis, which is the stability at quarterback. And at that point, what do you do? Like, to me, I think the success of Frank Reich in Carolina, and I understand your point, Justin, where I do think it was more a Chris Ballard thing with what he kept trying to do, whether it was him limiting himself or what they were limited to. But
I don't want to say definitely, but yeah, you got to think if there's going to be a signing issue or personnel issue, it's not going to be on the head coach.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I'm giving Frank Reich a little bit, because so now for the Carolina Panthers, what are you doing to get what he finally had? Because I know he played all right, but I'm going to be real with you guys. I don't see Sam Darnold as a 17-game starting quarterback in this league. And I get what Rick is trying to say with Matt Corral. He just didn't get to play this past season. Is there something there? Like, we wouldn't know that. That's an internal thing. Like, is there something that they've seen in practice that just blows them away? And it's like they can use their high first-round pick this year on a potentially, you're talking about, Justin, if the quarterbacks are going that high, does one of the top defensive players fall and you just make that defense even more stacked? Do you go with another skill position weapon because you did just lose a little bit of, that offensive pop into the system and you have an offensive guy now? Do you go with the offensive line that it was solid this year? Not the greatest in the world, but it was pretty good with Taylor Moton and I think Ikwono, like a rookie season where he had his ups and downs. It's going to be the case with every single rookie tackle, so I'm not going to hold that against him. Like, it basically needs to come down with, this is my thing. If you're making this hiring as the Panthers, you need to have already made your decision how you're going to tackle quarterback this offseason. It can't be, we don't know. It cannot be, we're going to take a chance with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold would be mid-tier at best compared to all the quarterbacks that Frank Reich had in Indy.
To me, it was more like a bridge decision.
You need to, but what I'm saying is that you need to make that decision now on how you're going to tackle quarterback. Because if you're going into the season with Frank Reich as the coach and your quarterback room is Sam Darnold and Matt Corral
and PJ Walker
and PJ Walker should be back. But regardless, if you're going in with that quarterback room into the next season, then I see a lot of flaws in this hiring because he just fit. Like, why are you repeating the system? This is my thing when coaches get rehired. Are we going to avoid everything that happened at their last stop? And as of right now, I mean, I know literally nothing has happened, so I'm not saying this definitively, but if they don't do something with the quarterback room, then it's going to be Indianapolis 2.0, except from the AFC South, it's going to be the NFC South, which is really weird that it keeps happening in the South Division now of all things. So there's that. I'm just saying that my ultimate grade for this hiring will be, what is the quarterback decision? I think they need to have made up their mind. Are they going to go with trying to trade up? What did you guys say? They had a top 7 pick in this draft?
Yeah, I believe they do, yeah.
So you don't even need to trade up for the quarterback. I think you could probably get Anthony Richardson in at number 7 if you're going to go heavy into it.
But that's the big gamble, though. Like, yes, Richardson is looking like a top 15, but he's a bottom tier top 15 guy. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're the Panthers, you want to swing for a Will Levis or a CJ Stroud, and you don't want to take the chance of them falling to 7 because they're probably not going to. Look at the rest of the teams that are in the top 7. They're probably going to take a quarterback. So you might be stuck. You might be drafting Quentin Johnson at TCU, the wide receiver, instead. Well, if you don't get the quarterback of your choice, it could work. But then that's the thing. That means you're settled on Sam Darnold because you're not drafting a quarterback in the 2nd round or the 3rd round again, thinking that he's going to be the number 1 guy. So if you want a top 7 quarterback, you're calling Chicago and you're going to number 1
or Arizona.
Or Arizona,
because they're not going to go quarterback. They have their quarterback. He's just hurt.
Right. So and this looks like a very good, heavy defensive top tier of the 1st round with the quarterbacks in addition. Like, right. So you could probably get your edge at 7. That's fine, but that's a big question.
Yeah, I just ultimately think, like, and this is the struggle because obviously we're not going to know anything about this until we see more from the Panthers offseason. We can only just make a baseline reaction to it. And my baseline reaction is, okay, this could work, but who's the quarterback? That's my ultimate grading here. Who is going to be the quarterback of the future for the Carolina Panthers? Because I agree with what the point that Justin brought up, or that both of you basically brought up, where the NFC South is going to be wide open. Because let's all be real here. Like, no, does anybody on this show, real quick, before we move on, does anybody think Tom Brady is coming back to the Bucs? No? All right. I just want to make sure, like, in case there was a different point of view. Because, Justin likes to think that Trent Baalke is the greatest GM in NFL history and that the Vikings are not frauds and that they should be in the Super Bowl. So I'm just making
Yeah, totally. That's
I'm
everything.
still waiting for my cake from last week. Where's my cake?
It was sent in the mail. I don't know. That's you trusting your
Why
mail
is a
service.
cake in the mail?
Because it is perfect.
What are you, new?
Yes.
Come on.
Anyways, inside jokes aside, where you'd have to watch previous episodes again, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on a little bit, but not to the playoffs. Because there was one more coaching hiring that I want to talk about here. Mainly, I want to just let these two riff-raff about it. New York Jets, as we actually talked about on the show very recently, fired Mike LaFleur. I believe he was actually hired by the Los Angeles Rams, by the way, which could have seemed coming a mile away.
Yeah.
The Jets hired as their new offensive coordinator a former head coach, guys. So, former head coach, a guy who's worked with a multi-time MVP quarterback, a guy who, and that quarterback will be in the Hall of Fame one day. The New York Jets hired Nathaniel Clock Management Hackett as the offensive coordinator. I feel like I should have reversed this in the order I went with last with the Panthers topic, so that's on me. But Rick, I'm not going to waste any time. Nathaniel Hackett is now the offensive coordinator of your New York Jets. How do you feel?
I'm renouncing my fandom of this team. I am. Why? Why is this the guy? Why is this the guy? Why is Paul Hackett's grandson the offensive coordinator of this team? Like, why? It reeks of desperation to try and bring Aaron Rodgers into New York. You saw how well it worked in Denver, by the way. I feel for Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and Bam Knight and Jeremy Ruckert and Ty Conklin and CJ Uzomah. I feel for these guys on offense. Like, this is the most Jetsian of Jetsian moves. Like, Nathaniel Hackett should have taken a year off, assessed who he was as a person, and then tried to come back next year. Like, what good is this going to do? What good is this going to do? Is this going to bring Zach Wilson? If they can't get Aaron Rodgers, which they're probably not going to be able to, but if they can't get Aaron Rodgers, are you going to try and win with Zach Wilson now? With Nathaniel Hackett as your offensive coordinator? Are you going to bring back Joe Flacco for another year? Are you going to get Davis Mills? Because the Texans aren't going to hold a lot on them. Are you going to convince Joe Namath to come out of retirement and stop kissing women and play quarterback again? Like what are we doing? What are the Jets doing? What is and I'm floored by this hiring. I really am, because this does to me nothing for the offense. It's an established name because he had good seasons in Green Bay as offensive coordinator. But what have you done for me lately? You were a terrible head coach. You had no idea what was going on in the offense. You had to bring on Grandpa Jerry Rosberg to help you manage the clock, basically. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing if we're the New York Jets administration here? What are we doing? We are conducting in the offseason a 32-team tournament that will decide the least offensive team that will become my new rooting interest in the 2023 season.
So that means we're resubmitting the Jets as a potential candidate.
Well, or the number one seed will have a bye.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, least offensive team could also mean least offensive fan base, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm heartbroken, man, because I was so confident going into this year, and it fell so flat for this team. And This is like getting hit by a public bus and then having the steamroller come over after that, and then having the Clydesdales come through after that. Like this is the Jets fandom. It has been over 50 years since the Jets went to a Super Bowl and were a Super Bowl contender. And like they went. Obviously, Rex Ryan was Rex Ryan. Nathaniel Hackett does not bring the Jets any closer to the Super Bowl. And God forbid they get Aaron Rodgers, it will not bring them any closer to a Super Bowl. I'm sorry. The pipe dream is a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. It's not. This doesn't work. Like, this does not work out at all. And that's a knee-jerk reaction from a Jets fan, a broken-hearted Jets fan, former Jets fan, who is so devastated by this. So, with that aside, Justin will now spout why this is a good thing for the Jets and tell you all the football reasons why you should still root for the Jets at this point.
Okay,
Because
I
got nothing.
Jets fan, and how dare you? You've been dealing with this crap for how many years now, and all of a sudden it's a surprise to you? Come on, I was having a rough week when I heard this Nathaniel Hackett news. You think I was just like jumping for joy? Everyone knows what they're doing.
Well, I don't know how you feel about possibly getting Aaron Rodgers. I don't really know.
They're putting all their eggs in the Aaron Rodgers basket, is what they're doing.
Yeah.
That is their full plan. Full stop. Anything short of getting Aaron Rodgers is going to be a wasted season now for this Jets defense. That's just what it is. Do I think that they could be good with Aaron Rodgers? Absolutely. Aaron Rodgers is still a Hall of Fame quarterback. He had a rough season this year. He had guys whose average yards, average yards of separation against the defender was among the lowest in the league. They were all rookies. There were guys running the wrong routes, and they still had a pretty decent season, a better season than the Jets did. They were still in it in Week 18. Aaron Rodgers also had a dislocated thumb, or was a fractured bone in his thumb?
I think so. Yeah.
He couldn't grip the ball. His accuracy was off, and he still would have had a top 5 Jets quarterback season. It's just an improvement. It is. It immediately makes them a contender in their division, and immediately makes them a contender to make a playoff run in the AFC. Is it the way I would have gone? Absolutely not. I am not a Nathaniel Hackett guy. You can sit here and you could blame Russ for all the things. The fact is, he was the head coach, and if they butt heads, they butt heads. If I'm going to get fired for butting heads and trying to run the offense correctly, then I'm going to get fired. I'm not going to sit back and let the player dictate how I run the offense. Right. That being said, he didn't call the plays in Denver unless they were in the red zone. When they were in the red zone, they were among the lowest efficiency in the entire league. They were, what were they, the worst offense in the league this year in terms
basically.
Of
remember, like the first 9 weeks of the season,
the Texans,
the first
Wilson and all of those receivers and a young running back. He got hurt, and they were the lowest scoring offense in the league this year.
Yeah, like the first 9 weeks of the season, they would have gone like 6-3 if they just averaged 20 a game. That's not hard.
Yeah, well, better than that actually. If you're going to go based on his Packers percentage, how many coaches got hired off of Aaron Rodgers having a great season? Tons. I'm talking about tons of coaches got hired because Aaron Rodgers played well the year before.
I thought you were making like head coaches got hired because of that. I can't remember Green Bay offensive coordinators getting hired as head coaches.
I think he more so means like just guys getting promotions. Like
that's fine.
That's fine. Joe Philbin did. There were guys. There were plenty.
Those
of guys.
are 2 great names you made right there.
No, I'm not saying that they were good. That's my point. Is that they got hired based on what Aaron Rodgers did and not being great coordinators, not being great coaches. I'm not singing the praises of Nathaniel Hackett here. I'm saying the opposite. This screams Adam Gase to me, a guy that benefited off of playing with one of the best quarterbacks of all time, never really did anything that special as a coach outside of that, and got a head coaching job. They're putting all of their eggs in the Aaron Rodgers basket. They're saying, here's a nice, cushy team. We are a ready-made defense. We have young skill position players that are better than what you've been playing with. We have an excellent running back. The offensive line is not great, but I promise you, if it's healthy, it will play much better with a legitimate passing threat behind the helm. they're putting all of their eggs in the Aaron Rodgers basket. And the issue here is you don't have Aaron Rodgers. And you can't guarantee that you're getting Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers can very well turn around and say, I'm going to stay with the Packers. I was never leaving here. Aaron Rodgers can turn around and say, hey, I don't want to play football anymore. And both of those options, I think, are more likely than him going to the Jets.
Justin, remind me again. Is he still under contract with the Packers?
Yes.
So that would mean a trade.
Yes.
So that would mean giving up the first round pick, probably.
I don't know what it would entail giving up, but yes, I would assume it would entail giving up a lot. Look, Aaron Rodgers can turn around and do the same thing Devontae Adams did and demand a trade this year, and it will affect the capital because now you're saying Aaron Rodgers is saying I'm either going to retire or I'm going to be a Jet or whatever team it is, and the Packers are backed into a corner. Either they're going to keep him on his roster, pay $60 million and let him sit out, let him retire, and then choose whatever team he wants to play for anyways for free, or get what they can. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the several first-round picks that everyone is throwing out there. I would assume it's going to be at least one, probably two, but I can't guarantee that. It could be a first and a second like they got for Devontae Adams.
My thing is, though, that yes, like everyone's been discussing Sean Payton and the compensation that's going to probably go his way or the Saints' way when the team hires him as their head coach for a trade. So that's fine. That's fine and dandy that, you're saying, oh, we're going to give you all these weapons. But the Jets are trending towards a mid-round offensive lineman pick again. And their offensive line, Vera Tucker was hurt this year. Becton could be out of the league at this point because I've, never seen her hurt.
Will not be out of the league.
Well, off the Jets probably, or at some point. Like
But I honestly think he might be worth some capital. They can get something for Becton. He's still a young player. I know he's had his weight problems. He's performed on the field, and his issue so far has been injury. Also,
if you do get Aaron Rodgers, would the first conversation not be Rodgers basically saying hey, I don't care how injured this kid has been, we're giving him another chance. You have a potential franchise left tackle.
They have three potential franchise left tackles. They have Font, who's played excellent. They have Vera Tucker, who filled in and played really well at left tackle last year, and they drafted Becton. But the fact is, until any of these guys stay on the field for a full season, you have no one.
But what I'm saying is that you don't think Rodgers' one of the demands would be keep him on the roster, start him wherever you want? Because if you're trading for Rodgers at this point,
the first demand would be fix the offensive line.
But
it doesn't matter how you do it. If you think these guys are going to stay healthy, that's fine. If you think you're going to sign someone, if you think you got to draft someone, I don't care how you do it. I don't want to be on my back.
But here's the thing:
back quarterbacks in his Packers career.
The past 15 years ago, we were having a similar conversation about Brett Favre coming to the Jets.
Isn't it ironic?
And he went one season.
Let me just say this: Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers are very different quarterbacks.
I agree with you, but what I'm saying is that it was the big ticket name.
Absolutely.
From Green Bay.
Yeah. You can make comparisons to a lot of different things. But the fact is, Aaron Rodgers has built his name on accuracy and efficiency.
Yeah.
And the fact is, with these young players and the system that they could run with Hackett, the issue is not going to be turnovers late in the game when Brett Favre has a bum shoulder. It's going to be, hey, Aaron Rodgers did this. You're going to run the ball down your throat with Breece Hall, and now he's got better receivers, a true number one like they didn't have in Green Bay, actual tight ends that they didn't have in Green Bay, and a depth at the wide receiver position. So now you're going to tell me Aaron Rodgers is going to be healthier. He's going to be a little less banged up. He didn't play in the playoffs this year for the first time in however many years. He's going to have better skill position players. In theory, his offensive line will be better because it was a revolving door in Green Bay last year. And a top 5 defense, and you're going to tell me the Jets aren't going to get better. Because I got news for you. If you look at the Jets and the amount of points they scored, they had the exact same issue that the Denver Broncos did. If they would have scored 20 points a game down the stretch,
made playoffs.
They would have made the playoffs easily. They would have made a double-digit win team.
Yeah.
So you got to play the Bills twice.
Yeah.
You got to play the Patriots twice.
Let me just ask you a question. Who played all of these teams? Who was the quarterback?
I understand.
You don't think they would have beat the Patriots both times with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback?
They definitely
probably would have beat the Bills twice if they had Aaron Rodgers at quarterback.
Okay, but
they would have beat Miami twice.
What I'm saying to you is that I understand it makes them a contender, but the AFC East is a lot tougher a division than the NFC North.
Rick. Let's before we
Not
blow
to
this out
mention,
of
by the
proportion,
way, they got to play the
I
Chiefs
straight
as
up
well.
said I've qualified this entire thing by saying this is not the move I would have made. I don't believe in this. I'm terrified that they're going to turn into the Indianapolis Colts. They're going to have a good defense, a good young team with skill position players, and a great running game, and they're going to have a revolving door of aged quarterbacks that are outside their window, and they're not going to do anything. They're going to be a first, second round out in the playoffs, and you're not going to see anything. Hackett is not the answer in my mind. I agree with you 100%. I'm not renouncing my fandom. I think this will make them better, but I don't see this as the right move. That being said, it is better. It is worlds better than where they are right now. And I don't necessarily know what direction you go in. Instead of, you're going to have to trade a bunch of capital anyways if you're going to get a quarterback, unless you're signing Jimmy Garoppolo or hopefully a free agent Derek Carr, which again is also not the answer. So either you're going to trade 2 first-round picks and try and move up in this draft to get a young quarterback and start the whole system over again with guys that probably won't be here next year, by the way, if they have another missed playoff issue. So I doubt they're going to do that. They're going to put all their eggs in the Zach Wilson kid next year, but this coming year, they're going to have a veteran quarterback. That's just the way it's going to be.
Look, I can't wait until
veteran quarterback that's available.
I can't wait until 2031 when Jordan Love becomes the Jets quarterback again. So
again, this is what I'm afraid of. This sounds to me like the Jets will continue to retool on defense. They'll have young offensive skill positions. Joe Douglas has proven that he's a very good drafter in my mind, minus maybe the quarterback situation. I don't know how he is at hiring coaches, because that's a huge thing. Again, this is something that really got to me this year, is that hiring coaches is so undervalued as someone that you're looking for. Everyone is always about the product on the field. But the fact is, you need a general to send your men into battle. You need to have the right guy, to have the right play calls, to have the right system, to know what they're doing. Time management's important. Offensive play calling, defensive play calling, special teams. So many of the teams that I was like, all right, they're not going to do anything this year. Guess what? They still had really good head coaches. They made pushes towards the end of the year. They were relevant. The Seahawks, the Patriots, unfortunately. Even the Dolphins, who I didn't think were going to be relevant at the end of the year, but still pretty decent. They had a great year. Offensively, they were explosive when Tua was on the field, and that has a lot to do with play calling. Now, look at the teams that we thought were going to be good with new coaches. The Raiders, the Broncos. No, we did. We thought the Raiders were going to be good. We can go back and rewind it. We'll find.
Yeah. No, I'm saying that was a mistake on our part.
Yeah. No, there were teams. The Cardinals. I had the Cardinals making the playoffs in the wild card, I believe.
Yeah.
Look at the Niners. They're well coached. They're in the playoffs. The Chiefs, no matter how many superstars they lost, which was really only one, but 2 maybe. But
yeah,
Andy Reid is still a Hall of Fame coach there.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's a lot of it is about finding the right coach. And I know Jurg is going to get mad at me, but forget who hired him. Look at the difference between hiring Urban Meyer and hiring Doug Peterson. It's a huge difference. They're basically the same team. They had.
I thought you were going Mike Mularkey versus Mike Vrabel.
So I was going to say, why am I going to get mad?
I went Trent Baalke.
Oh.
Okay, I will give Trent Baalke credit. He did better than hiring Urban Meyer. I'll give him credit for that.
Yeah, look, and look, don't give him so much credit because he hired Urban Meyer.
Yeah,
that's true.
Okay, he also hired Doug Peterson, and that made a huge difference. Coaching is a major thing, and my issue right now with Joe Douglas is, can he hire the right coaches? Saleh has done amazing things with this defense. The offense was among the worst I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. They've lost multiple games on special teams issues. The clock management was not fantastic. There were plenty of games they came out flat. They didn't look like they know how to play. There are major issues still on this Jets team, and I don't think Nathaniel Hackett solves it, and I don't think Aaron Rodgers is the answer. That being said, getting Aaron Rodgers will immediately make them better.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what they're going for. It's a playoff mandate, one step at a time.
Yeah.
Is it the right decision? We'll see, but I'm not renouncing my fandom over it. I'm used to this kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I honestly, for you guys, at the end of the day, I want to see what happens. This is kind of similar to the Panthers situation, but it literally, unlike the Panthers situation where we're talking about it has to be a franchise quarterback. With the Jets, it has to be the specific quarterback. And that's where I'm interested to see. Because, Justin, you got to understand, this is an ultimate nightmare for Rick. Not only was Nathaniel Hackett hired to be the offensive coordinator, but that means that the only way this will work out is if Aaron Rodgers becomes a starting quarterback for the team that he has been rooting for his entire life.
I know. And he's been super anti-Aaron Rodgers all season. I know. And he could be a pill to swallow. He's said some things. The media says some things. And Aaron Rodgers is a terrible person, maybe. I don't know. I don't know the guy. I'm not going to sit here and make claims based on what the media told me. I'm not going to sit there and make claims based on what I heard him say. Things happen. Things get twisted. Things, you know what I mean? I'm not doing my research. I never met the guy. I'm not going to make an assumption. That being said, the dude's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He would be the best. If he had the season he had last year, with all of the crap that went on, he would still be a top 10 quarterback in Jets history.
Probably higher.
Probably higher. Thank you. If they had Aaron Rodgers last year, they might have won the division. And Rick, you can get upset. You can cry if you want to. It's a fact. If they had Aaron Rodgers last year, they would have at least won the 2 Patriots games and maybe won that second Bills game. All right, and that's 1 less loss for the Bills, which will put them at 12, and that's 3 more for the Jets, which would have put them at 11. So you could maybe assume they might have won 1 more game, like, I don't know, a Jaguars game or a Lions game that they were in.
What about the last
Vikings game?
The last Dolphins game.
Even the last Dolphins game, they might have gone undefeated in the division with a quality quarterback play, and they didn't have it.
Aaron Rodgers this season, 3,695 yards, 26 touchdowns. The 12 interceptions is obviously rough for this season, but again, part of that, like you said, Justin, the combination of the finger injury, and I think he's still feeling it from his foot injury the year prior. Like you put both those injuries on a 39-year-old quarterback.
An injured 39-year-old Aaron Rodgers would have had a comparable statistical season to the best statistical season that I remember the Jets having, which was had by Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yes, basically.
Okay, Aaron Rodgers' worst season is Ryan Fitzpatrick's best season as a Jets quarterback.
And the best season by any Jet basically in history.
Okay. Look, even Joe Namath, he wasn't the guy he was a winner, but he wasn't the guy that was up there throwing the ball left and right and statistical genius. He was great. He's a legend. He will always be the Jet. But the Jets have never had a good quarterback. They really haven't.
They've never had an elite quarterback.
They've never had an elite quarterback. That's correct. I mean, what's Joe Namath's career record? I'm pretty sure he's got a losing record, doesn't he?
Well, doesn't he have more interceptions than touchdowns? Or no?
Again, I'm not trying to pick on Joe Namath. He's God. All right. He brought us to the promised land. It has never happened again. We've never been as close to greatness as we have with Joe Namath. But isn't that kind of sad after 60 years? Aaron Rodgers would be the best thing that we had so far. He'd be better than the Brett Favre years. He'd be better than anyone that I can remember.
Chad Pennington, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Mark Sanchez.
Year after year. It's like banging your head against the goddamn wall. It is terrible. Right? And that's what being a Jet fan is. If this can improve them, even if it's for 2 years, I'll take it. It is what it is. But I don't necessarily know what's going to happen. And in fact, I wouldn't think he's going to leave.
Right.
He didn't leave last year, and that was way more likely. Now he just signed a $60 million contract. So now the Jets will have to give up all that draft capital and pay him $60 million.
Well, the Packers are going to fit some of the bill. The Packers are going to fit some of the bill.
So it changes to $30 million cap hit after a certain date.
Right. But so that's my question then. That's my fear. Like, you did all of this for one guy, right? And he ain't coming.
Well, you don't know he's coming. That's the issue.
Well, I'm saying he doesn't come. If he doesn't, then what do you do? This doesn't solve anything.
Then you have to hope that Nathaniel Hackett had something to bring to the table. And realistically, you're either going after Jimmy Garoppolo, you're going after maybe Lamar, who I don't think is going anywhere either. Although if I was Lamar, I think I would ask for a trade. That's just my opinion.
Right.
And not saying that as a Jets fan who wants him, saying as a fan of football that the Ravens have done him no favors,
right?
And won't pay him. Or Jimmy Garoppolo, Lamar Jackson, or Derek Carr, who's also owed a ton of money, by the way.
Yeah,
not $60 million, but he's owed a ton of money, and he had a very disappointing season last year.
Well, the Raiders could still cut him because I think at this point, like, people know that he's out of Vegas.
They're probably going to have to.
Yeah.
And at that point, you get to completely negotiate a whole new contract with him. So
It depends, because if a team claims him on waivers, then they are going to be responsible for that contract.
I don't know if anyone's going to claim him off waivers. I think they're just going to let him clear it.
Look, as a Jets fan, I would let him clear it. As a fan of a team that, an executive that needs a quarterback and thinks Derek Carr is the answer, am I going to leave that to chance? Maybe not. That's why you see guys claimed. So
we don't have the answer as to like what teams would desperately need a quarterback to go after Derek Carr. We're not going to cover that. I think
I was going to say we could go through it, but I don't have the numbers and figures in front of me.
We don't have the time for that either.
I needed Nathaniel Hackett as the Jets O quarter, like I needed Ezekiel Elliott as my center for the final play of the game.
Look, again, I don't like it, but yeah, that's where we are. That's where we're at right now. I told you who I wanted.
What an all-natural transition there, because Rick is one of the best in the game when it comes to that. This is a PA announcer extraordinaire, ladies and gentlemen. Hire him if you need a PA.
Oh, yeah, please, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll take your money.
Yeah, absolutely. We all want. Anyways, let's move on. Spirited conversation, hour and a half in. We haven't even touched playoff football yet. We're going to do this a little bit rapid fire because, I mean, at least half of these games, there's something to talk about, but it eventually ended up the way we kind of expected it to. The other two games.
Well, two of us expected it to.
Yeah, fair enough. Justin, did we go undefeated during the weekend?
Yeah, we went undefeated, which was bad for Rick because he went defeated.
Yeah. Wait. Did he really pick? He picked the Giants.
He was opposite of us at every game.
Oh Jesus!
Hey!
Oh, I thought you picked the Eagles too. I thought you picked the Eagles.
No, I picked no.
Oh, you picked San Francisco?
Jerk. I like to sleep at night. Why would I pick the Eagles?
He for sure picked the Giants. He definitely picked the Bills, and he picked the Jaguars.
Okay, but
San Francisco.
Let's be real here. Logically, he's 2-2 because we know he probably thought the Eagles would win, but he can't just say it.
That is a falsehood, and you should be ashamed of yourself for saying that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think that's the case at all. But.
All right. Continue to live in your delusions of grandeur. It's funny enough. The Saturday games are the two games we're going to run through here really quick. The Philadelphia Eagles defeated the New York Giants 38-7.
Yes,
it was
about that game.
No, it was over after the Giants' first offensive possession. It was because they drove. They looked like they were going to answer. Then they were stymied on 3rd and 4th down. The Eagles just drove right back and scored, and that was it. Really.
Yeah.
You know what's really crazy? If you were to think about the number that Daniel Jones would have made if that game was close,
right? Oh. If he hadn't gone 15-27 for 135 yards and 1 interception.
Yeah, if he would have made that game close, even if he didn't have like the huge stats, if they would have been close in that game, that's another maybe top 10 quarterback money.
Yeah,
which he might be getting at this point, but I mean, top 10 for like the next 5 years. Like he would have made a lot of money.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So while we await to see if the Giants will Blake Bortles themselves in this situation, the game, like I said, Jalen Hurts wasn't necessarily super impressive, but the Eagles just absolutely ran all over the Giants in this one. Literally none of the running backs could be stopped. 268 yards total, 3 rushing touchdowns. Boston Scott, I forget the exact number. What is it? He's got 11 career touchdowns against the Giants facing them? He's apparently the giant killer, so there's that. Kenneth Gainwell, who Rick name dropped earlier in the show, had 112 yards and 1 TD. Miles Sanders, 17 carries, 90 yards. Very close to 2 100-yard running backs in this game. And Jalen Hurts also did a little bit of groundwork with a touchdown, just 34 yards. Just straight-up domination over a team that clearly the Eagles were better than. It was going to be interesting to see if the Giants could have carried any momentum from the Minnesota Vikings game. But again, this is kind of what we talked about last week. There was a clear divide between the top 2 teams in the NFC and everybody else in that conference. And this clearly showed it, that the Giants could beat the Minnesota Vikings, that fraudulent 3 seed, but at the end of the day, the proper number 1 seed in the NFC showed why they also smoked the Minnesota Vikings earlier this season. So the Giants back to the drawing board. We'll see what they do in the offseason. Again, not too much. I don't want to diverge us into offseason talk because that could be saved for later episodes down the line. Later this month, next month, well, month's actually basically over. Next month, the month after, etc. We're not going to dive too much into that. But the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely demolished the New York Giants in that one, 38-7. This game warrants, I think, a little bit more conversation, but 27-20, Kansas City Chiefs over the Jacksonville Jaguars. We've already mentioned it a couple times on the show, but Patrick Mahomes got hurt at some point early in the game, and there was a concern by many people that picked the Chiefs that what was going to happen, where the Jaguars going to be able to take advantage. But I liken this to the game from a couple of years ago between the Browns and the Chiefs I think it was the divisional round 2, if I'm not mistaken, where Mahomes goes down, Chad Henne takes over, and the Chiefs defense step up to limit the opposing offense as much as possible. Chad Henne did his thing. I don't think Mahomes came back in that Browns game. He did come back to finish off this game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Kansas City Chiefs win this one. Mahomes finishes with 2 passing touchdowns. I will give Chad Henne credit. He threw a touchdown in this one as well. Travis Kelce came up big, 14 catches for 98 yards, 2 touchdowns. Justin name dropped him earlier, but Isaiah Pacheco with a great game for himself. The rookie with 12 carries for 95 yards in this one. Would have loved it if he could have gotten the chance to finish a touchdown drive, but probably coming his way in one of these future games. Probably tomorrow. So the Chiefs are able to survive Jacksonville in this one. I don't know if we want to try the narrative of the whole if Mahomes never got hurt thing. I don't know if I really want to focus on that. Did you take any notes away from this game in particular about the Chiefs boys, or was this just they were able to win the game when their starting quarterback went down? What notes can you take from this one?
Throw the ball to Travis Kelce all day long. He'll catch it. Even if he's 5 yards away, he'll find a way to get the ball and catch it.
Does he have the best catch radius of like basically any tight end in this league currently?
I think George Kittle might have something to say about that, but yeah, I mean, I think Kelce set the record for most catches by a tight end in the postseason game too.
Right.
But it goes to show you really that whole next man up narrative, because Chad Henne did not look out of place. He was comfortable. He was ready to go. And look. Give credit to Jacksonville. They stuck around. They hung around. There was a couple of miscues here and there that, a young team will cause miscues. An experienced team will capitalize on them. And that's what happened. The Chiefs are an experienced playoff team. They capitalized on Jacksonville's 0-point efforts or miscues or any of that nature. And yeah, I mean, that's what you expect from a game like this. It was competitive because Doug Peterson, we have to give him a lot more credit. He's a very good head coach in this league. And it was a very fun matchup to see a student take on the master, because Peterson worked for Reed at, I think, a number of stops in his career.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think I picked the Jags kind of on that hope, but it was a lot closer than I expected it to be. But yeah, there was like Justin said, it was a young team. The Jaguars were that weren't ready for prime time at the moment. More ready than Kirk Cousins, but not ready for prime time just yet.
Well, of course, everyone's more ready than Kirk Cousins for primetime games. But
yeah.
No, I'm with you, Rick. First off, revenge game for Chad Henne, former Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback from 2012 to 2017. But really, like you said, this was just a young team that just wasn't ready for this moment against this exact team. But the Jaguars will be back. I think there's a lot of talent on that team that they can work on. There, like you said, there were some miscues. There were some plays that they could have made that they just didn't, that maybe a year or two down the line they will be able to make. And maybe this could have been an upset in the 2024 and 2025 playoffs. But at the end of the day, they just weren't able to. What impressed me, because, again, I compared this to that Cleveland Browns game from a few years ago, because, again, things could have gone wrong, because you mentioned earlier in the show, Rick, that like the Chiefs defense is probably the defense you have the most questions about of the 4 remaining, I think you said that. So, and I think we could all agree, like, this Chiefs defense has really had to go. I feel like after every single year, they've had to make one major replacement from their team, especially from last year with having to replace Tyrann Mathieu. Even the year before that, with the changes that they've had, just so much on this Chiefs defense, I think has been the most fluctuating roster, part of the roster for the Chiefs, obviously over the last like half decade of this run of 5 straight AFC Championship games now. That I got to give them credit where credit's due. The defense stepped up in this one. They only held the Jaguars to 20. They made important plays, where not big plays, like they didn't get like 2-3 interceptions on Lawrence like the Chargers did. They didn't sack him like 10, 6, 7, 8, 9 times like most other places did. They only sacked him twice. They only picked him off once. But I think at the right moment, the Chiefs defense made the right play of batting a ball down, of getting the tackle to avoid the first down. I think they did what they had to do enough times in order to get the win. And that's what this Chiefs defense is going to have to do for the remainder of the playoffs. So that's what spoke to me in this game, is that this Chiefs defense, who is, we can all agree, the biggest question mark about the Chiefs going into the season, during the season, so they stepped up in important moments. And that's what you're going to need for them going forward. Justin, any other thoughts aside from what the two of us have said?
I do disagree. I mean, I don't think that this was a moment that was too big for them. They really stepped up. They made this a really close game for the majority of it. They played well. I think that they weren't the better team, but they made the game competitive, and that defense played really well, albeit it was an injured Mahomes. And the offense kept it close. Like I said, they could have made a couple more plays. The defense came. You were right. The defense came through, but this is a team that looks like they're ready to go. They're a few pieces away, and if Trevor Lawrence could really make that next step forward, this is going to be a really good team for a long time because they're very young as well.
I think what I say, like the plays, like they're ready. When Christian Kirk got hurt and that drive after, so Jacksonville scores a touchdown, make it 20-17, or it's whatever the score was, and then Kansas City comes back and it's 27-17. The next drive, Jacksonville was driving, and then you had that costly fumble by Agnew.
Look, but like things happen. You know what I mean?
Right,
I
of course.
don't think that necessarily means that they weren't ready for this.
No. But the point that I'm making is that the next offensive drive they had, Trevor Lawrence tries to force that ball because the time's running out on him, and they're down by 10. So that's why I'm saying, more experience and more seasoning for this core Jaguars team will get them better into the playoffs. So just right now, at that moment, they showed they were inexperienced. So.
Yeah, to the point, like, I don't say that to fully discredit them or disrespect them, but what I more so meant by the whole young thing is that what the Chiefs defense threw at them, the catches that weren't brought down, the fact that like ETN, and this is Doug Peterson getting more accustomed to this game, Travis Etienne was having a good yards per carry game, but they just stopped eventually. Like, it's those little things that I think a year more of chemistry for this team, 2 years more of chemistry of this team, they can do it. They did compete, yes, but this is why I always try to make the distinction between teams like them and other teams. Great teams, yes, with the other quarterback being out, they could have won this game.
Yeah.
That's why they're a good team. You could say a pretty good team. They're not great yet.
Yeah.
Like, yes, they won the division. I mean, look, I'm not going to say anything. They did me a favor for these playoffs. I'm not going to disrespect the Jaguars. But at the same time, they're not great yet. They're there. They have the pieces, but they're not there yet. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. Look at the other side of the playoff picture. You had a very similar team in a very similar situation. They win their division, but they got that big upset win in the first round. Giants were the upset pick going in. Jaguars, I think it was like a very close game between them and Chargers. Yeah. They had to come back down 27-0. Like, it's a very similar situation, but the Jags are in a better spot than the Giants are, easily, considering they have the franchise quarterback that they're not going to overpay this offseason. So there it goes. Now, moving on from that, at least I think we don't have any more comments about this game, do we? No. Let's go to the two games that it's a little bit more to talk about. One of them, the shock, the result didn't surprise us in terms of we could have envisioned this team winning. I think the final score was probably the more shocking thing in terms of how this game played out. And a game that how Mike McCarthy still has a job we could talk about, hence the title of the show, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get to that game last here because it was also the last game of the playoff weekend. The Cincinnati Bengals defeated the Buffalo Bills 27-10 in this one. Bills jumped out to an early 14-0 lead. Josh Allen with a 1-yard run, but it just became a slog there where these two teams were just trading field goals for a little bit before Joe Mixon got a touchdown late in the third quarter, and that basically sealed it, giving them a 14-point lead. The Bills defense, like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase didn't have monster games. They didn't have elite games, but they were great. I think the best analysis I heard was that Joe Burrow in this one, he was cerebral in his approach. He picked apart the Bills defense in the right moments and made some of the right throws. But the biggest thing for me with the Bills defense was the fact that I have called this out for the last couple of postseasons, especially 2 years ago when they had first made it as a higher seed and the Indianapolis Colts were this close to beating them with a rookie, Jonathan Taylor. There's the rushing defense. Joe Mixon with 105 rushing yards, 20 carries, 1 touchdown for himself. That was a big thing. He was gashing that team consistently throughout the game. Again, methodical pacing by this Bengals offense that I think we could agree here, boys, the Bills just did not have for themselves. Josh Allen was the leading rusher with 8 carries for 26 yards and a touchdown, and he only went 25 of 42 with 264 yards and an interception, no passing touchdowns through the air. But we've already kind of said a lot about the Bengals in this one, so I think we could kind of I think we said most of what we want to say about them. At least for me, the last point I'll bring up is I think that Bengals defense, I said it before, is underrated. They showed up, and I think this team is really raring to go in the next game, to say the least. Let's put a little bit more focus on the Buffalo Bills in this one, guys. I know this is a generic question, but I feel like we could go in 2 or 3 different ways at least for this one. But what went wrong for the Buffalo Bills here? Whenever a team loses a game like this, people are going to say, well, the offense only scored 10 points, but the defense was just not that looking good. But the offense, but the defense, da-da-da-da-da. Spoiler alert, it can be both, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to kind of tackle that. Justin, what do you think went completely wrong for the Bills in this one? They lost by 17 points at home.
It's exactly what I said all season. It's the reason I picked the Bengals to win this game last week. It's that the Bengals are a more complete team. The Bills, I mean, albeit they are excellent in a lot of different things. They are among the top in passing offense and passing defense. But they're one-dimensional. They're one-dimensional on offense. They're one-dimensional on defense. And that's also where the Von Miller injury really, really hurts them because Von Miller was that presence off the edge that they relied on heavily all year. I mean, when you had Von Miller coming off the edge, and you can even make the argument that if they had Von Miller coming off the edge with the revolving door that they had on the edges of their line this week, the Cincinnati Bengals might have gone home. So when they had Von Miller rushing the passer, there was just so much. It was so much easier to cover because you had so much less time to throw the ball. You had so much less time to get out of the backfield. And now, without a running game to kind of eat up clock, because the Bills, although it was improved from last year, they still don't have a great rushing attack, and they didn't have great rushing defense. They played a more complete team, and that was their issue going into the offseason. I thought that they kind of addressed it, and again, I think they did get a little bit better at it, but it's I mean, I could say it over and over again. They are not a great rushing defense, and they're not a great rushing offense, and that's where they lost the game.
They got punched in the mouth twice at the very onset. The very first drive, Cincinnati touchdown. Buffalo 3-and-out. Next drive, Cincinnati touchdown. The Bengals were ready to go for this game, and Buffalo came out of the gates slow, sloppy, and it looked like they were not ready for this game at all. All the hype that had been built up to it, all the charge that had been there, it looked like they weren't ready for it. I mean, that's it. When a team asserts its dominance that quickly, goodbye. There was nothing the Bills could. When the Bills' top receiving weapons combined catch as many passes as their tight end or their running back, because Diggs and Davis were held to just 5 total catches between the two of them. You're not doing anything. Like Justin said, this is a one-dimensional offense. It runs through Josh Allen. It runs through his arm. And when they weren't ready, when they weren't available, couldn't do anything. It's an interesting blueprint for a team that had been pegged by many to be a Super Bowl contender this year and a mainstay. But now you see the blueprint of how you can silence Buffalo, and it's going to be interesting to see how teams next year look at this game and figure out how to beat them.
Well, I'm surprised they didn't do it last year because, I mean, I was saying it in the offseason this year. What was the major thing that they had that was an issue last year when everyone pegged them as a Super Bowl contender last year? They lost to Jacksonville. What did Jacksonville do? They slowed down the pass attack, and they rushed the ball, and they won that game 9-6. This was an issue going into the season. That's how the Jets beat them this year. That's how a lot of the teams were in those games. So, I mean, I think Miami averaged like 13 yards a carry in that first snow game.
Yeah.
So the issue here is they're one-dimensional, and they rely way too heavily on Josh Allen. I mean, don't get me wrong. Top 3 quarterback. I'm not arguing it. I don't think he's 1 or 2, but I still think he's easily that first tier of quarterbacks. There's 3 of them in the league right now, and you know who they are. That being said, one of them is much more heavily relied on, I think, than the other 2. And that one is Josh Allen.
Yeah,
he does
I agree.
so much for that offense. And when you run into a game where, hey, we're going to stop Josh Allen from running and it's snowing outside, what do you have left?
Yeah.
Your rush game was nothing, and you're not stopping, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine. And you could just go on with that offense. They have so many different players that can be an X factor in the game. You saw my boy Hayden Hurst that I was telling you about last week. So look, they were not as good a team. It's really what it is. The Bengals are such a complete football team that, I mean, yeah, they have their issues too, but they can win in a lot of different ways. Joe Burrow did play an excellent game, albeit, again, not statistically, but you can make the argument Jamar Chase should have had 2 touchdowns in that game in the first half, which would have been a huge, huge difference in the final score. And they had the ability to rely on those running backs in that rushing game and just kind of do their best to hold the Bills down. And they didn't really have an answer.
Do you think, Justin?
Sometimes.
I know.
Oh, was there a question?
Yeah. There is
Well,
there.
he only wants you to answer, not me.
Is there a? I mean, Drew can answer this too. Do you think? Because I just thought of this now. Is there a parallel between Buffalo and Baltimore because of how heavily they rely on their quarterbacks?
Yeah, they're kind of like inverse though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they did everything they can in Baltimore to have the best rushing attack possible,
Mhm.
and then they have a great rushing defense. I think they have a better defense in Baltimore
Mhm.
slightly, although you can make the argument that when healthy, it's pretty close. But
Yeah.
they rely so heavily on their quarterback for the offense, but at one side of the ball, they provided them with like as many receivers as you can get.
Mhm.
And one they did with like great linemen and the best rushing attack that you can get and a good tight
Yeah.
end. And then that was kind of it. They were like, you guys got this. We'll focus on something else. And it made them perennial playoff teams, although I guess Baltimore hasn't made it the last 2 years. But I think that's more due to injury, especially the
Yeah.
injury of Lamar. But yeah, I completely see what you're saying. They are relying on these guys to be MVP. And when they're not MVP in a game, they lose.
Well, the reason why I'm saying this is because you could then create the narrative in a way that Cincinnati is a more complete team than the teams that have relied solely on their quarterbacks. And will that continue tomorrow? I mean, I know Kansas City is a different animal, but Kansas City does rely on Mahomes to do a lot of the offensive pickup.
Absolutely. That being look, you also have to understand that as a team that doesn't rely as much on their quarterback, Joe Burrow is still that guy.
Yeah.
He's still arguably the best quarterback in the NFL. I think he is the best traditional quarterback we've seen in a long time.
Mhm.
I mean, since maybe Aaron Rodgers in his prime, he's that guy that will make you pay for not playing the game correctly. And they have all of those weapons that Aaron Rodgers never had. You know what I mean? He's got one first round receiver, but he's a second round receiver, a true number one running back, good tight ends, all at the same time, which is something that I don't think Aaron Rodgers. He's had good players, never at the same time like that, and
Mhm.
they've never had such a complete offense. I mean, maybe you can make the argument that Aaron Rodgers was better. He's clearly a Hall of Famer, and Joe Burrow's not there yet,
yeah.
but yeah, they are a very good football team all the way around, and have that guy at quarterback. So that's why they're winning these games. That's why they keep coming on, and in the second half of the season and in the playoffs. And that's why it's also so flabbergasting that they start so slow sometimes at the beginning of the year. I mean, this is the second year in a row, but they started and they're like, all right, maybe something's a little off. Maybe this is not the same Bengals team as it was last year. And all of a sudden, then they're in the AFC Championship game again. So
Back-to-back AFC title game performances. It's great. I do agree with the point that you made there, Rick. It's like putting everything on the quarterback, and once it falls apart, it's done. And we saw what we've actually spoken about the last couple of weeks, especially Just has been keen to point out, like Josh Allen still has those tendencies in him to try to be that high gambler, to try to make the plays. I think he kind of got lucky with just throwing one interception in this game. I think he could have easily been picked off at least one or two more times. So I think
that's what we're saying. But they need him to be that guy.
No, I understand that. I understand that. But this is where the comparison happens to where with Lamar, it's the lack of receivers. Josh Allen's got the receivers. He's got Dawson Knox. He's got Stephon Diggs. And when everything is falling apart, when those guys aren't being Stephon Diggs, Dawson Knox had a decent game. When Stephon Diggs didn't have the best possible game, you saw what happened to Josh Allen there. It's kind of, we always give the credit to the quarterback, but that I've been one to say over the last season and a half, well, I guess now 2 seasons, I've flat out said Stephon Diggs is a big reason why Josh Allen has had the success. I don't think anyone is giving him his credence. And Stephon Diggs has probably the worst playoff game, at least since his Buffalo tenure started. And this is the game we see out of Josh Allen. So I think to Rick's point, it is an agreement where, as like you said, Ravens built up that rushing team. They got him all the running backs in the world. Bills have way more offensive, between wide receiver mainly. Tight end, I mean, Mark Andrews, Dawson Knox, two very athletic, talented tight ends. People would probably give it to Andrews more, but Dawson Knox is no slouch. He's probably that next tier below Andrews. Or if you consider them on the same tier and you only have Kelsey Kittle, irregardless. I think what we saw from this game, you guys have already said it, this Bills team was flawed, and they were able to play up against their flaws based off of pure talent alone this season. and they made out money most of the time. But this deep into the playoffs, this deep into the season, you can't have that. You got to be at your best, and if you got flaws, you said it yourself, Justin, Joe Burrow's going to pick you apart. I think he's probably become the most cerebral quarterback in the league, and I call him Joe Cool 2.0 for a reason, because he just picks guys apart. He's undefeated in January, by the way, actually. I saw that stat. I think CBS Sports shared it. He's undefeated in January. 2-0 at LSU, and whatever his record is with the Bengals at this point. I think 7-0, they said, something like that. So, because the Super Bowl happens in February. So, never won in February, but undefeated in January. Joey B. We'll see if he can change that. But, no, yeah, I picked the Bengals as well last week. I didn't think it would be this kind of, blowout. Let's be real here. 17 points is a 2-score game. I didn't think it would be this level to where they were that much better. That going into next season, the Buffalo Bills, are they a top 3 Super Bowl favorite next year like they've been the last 2 years? I don't think so.
Yeah, probably. They probably are.
Really?
Well, maybe they're 4. Because you got to think that the Niners are going to be where they were.
Yeah.
You're not going to take anything away from the Bengals and the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So your argument is going to be for 4. It's going to be between the Eagles and the Bills.
Yeah. And that's fair. But
you make the argument that the Eagles had an easier schedule, and the Bills' offense is a more high-powered offense.
I'd agree with that. But honestly, I mean, the Eagles' rushing game is way better than the Bills.
Yeah, well, look, it's difference in philosophy. I mean, the Eagles are more like the Ravens, but with the receivers. Their idea is we're going to have a rushing quarterback. We're going to have a 3-headed monster of running backs. You're not going to know when we're rushing the ball. And then when we throw it over the top of you, you're going to be surprised because you've been stacking the box this whole time to stop us from rushing it against you for 300 yards. Buffalo's the exact opposite. We're going to throw the ball constantly. You're going to have to spread your guys out far. And you're either going to have to get after our quarterback, who the second you're not looking, he's going to gash you for 20 yards. Or we're going to have one of these running backs that'll catch the ball out of the backfield, all of a sudden take a handoff. And we'll try and rush through that way.
Problem is that handoff thing game worked so good in the playoffs this year.
Yeah,
it did the first one. They won the first game. I mean,
barely.
It was closer than we thought it would be. But again, that's when it came back to.
They shouldn't have won by 3 points against the Dolphins. That was the biggest thing for me. That's why I picked the Bengals over them. They shouldn't have beat the Dolphins by 3 points.
Yeah, well, the issue again comes back to their defense though on that one. It's not an offensive issue. They could not stop.
The offense had back-to-back turnovers. There's 2 turnovers within 3 possessions that put them in a bad field position. Field position matters. Punters and kickers huge.
Field position is huge, and that's why decision making for quarterbacks is such a big topic. But the issue really was that the field position wouldn't have mattered if they could stop a run game. I mean, there's no reason that Miami should be able to run 3 straight times every 4 downs.
Yeah,
and get first downs.
Yep,
know what they're doing. They're telling you what they're going to be doing. They have a third-string quarterback who played well, but he's a third-string quarterback. You held down Tyreek Hill for the most part, and Jalen Waddle, who both had 1,000-yard seasons.
Well, Waddle just had a bad game.
What else do you need to do?
He did not look good.
Which it's amazing you bring up the third-string quarterback there, Justin, because one third-string 7th-round pick could make it out of the Super Wildcard weekend, and we got one third-string Super Wild 7th-round pick, Mr. Irrelevant, who was playing in the title game.
Absolutely. But there's a difference in the quality of play and the
position. Oh, there is. Absolutely.
And
absolutely is.
Just a complete difference. Even if it's the same guy, you can make the argument that maybe Skylar Thompson in San Francisco would also be playing the way he is, because again, they are the most complete football team that I have seen in a long time. There has been a long drought that we have seen such a bruising, punishing defense be paired with the kind of explosiveness that they have on offense. I mean, you make 2 or 3 mistakes, this team's going to blow you out of the water.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is wild how dangerous this San Francisco 49ers team is. And I didn't pick them to win the Super Bowl. I know I picked them to go, but every time you pick against them, you question.
Yeah, yeah.
You question.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So,
is this team going to make me look foolish?
Right.
No, that's Mike McCarthy.
No.
He'll make you foolish.
Well, 19-12, 49ers, Dallas Cowboys was the final score in that one. It was a very, defensively orientated game. Both sides were getting stopped. Both sides forced the other quarterbacks to play pedestrian, if you want to call it that. 19 of 29 for big clock Brock Purdy in this one. Dak Prescott, 23 at 37, 206 yards, 1 touchdown. but 2 interceptions. Ezekiel Elliott did not help affairs at all. Only 26 rushing yards for him, but Tony Pollard, 6 carries, 22 yards, but he goes down with an injury, sadly ending his season very much prematurely and potentially affecting him in the offseason. Who knows? But Dallas Cowboys unable to win this game, despite what was a great game out of CD Lamb for 10 catches, 117 yards right there, CD, and a pretty good game from their defense. But this is why we said last week, the 49ers, Justin mentions, you make a mistake, they'll take advantage. The 49ers team just knows how to win these kinds of games. They've won this kind of game several times over the last couple of seasons. They won this kind of game, low-scoring, ugly game against Green Bay last year, where the difference was a blocked punt, and they made a field goal at the end to beat the Packers last season in the divisional round. I think even the year before that, not the when they made it to the Super Bowl, was the divisional round game they had closer? Because I know they destroyed the Packers. One of their games in that Super Bowl was kind of close.
Yeah, I think the divisional round game was pretty close. Yeah.
So they nearly beat the Rams last year, all things considered, as well. Yep. We are talking about a San Fran team that I've been with you, Justin, throughout a consistent vast majority of the season. The dynamic offensive potential they have, combined with the defense they have, is just absolutely lethal.
Well, and that's the thing also. In the beginning of the year, we weren't sure that this offense was going to be so explosive. Deebo Samuel coming off of one good year, we just signed a big money contract. That doesn't always work out. You know, they didn't have Christian McCaffrey there. Ayuk was good at the end of last season, but what was going to happen? And then they had Trey Lance starting. Then all of a sudden, Jimmy Garoppolo comes in, and they're doing okay. Offensively, they're not the best team, but they're starting in good field position. They're scoring points. Their defense is lights out. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, Brock Purdy comes in, and they're exploding. And barring last game, they were averaging, 35 points a game with Brock Purdy?
This was the first game he looked like the last pick of the draft.
Yeah.
And the fact they still won it, it's pretty good.
Let me just say, he wasn't a Hall of Famer in the last game by all means. He didn't throw any interceptions.
Yeah.
He didn't have any turnovers.
Didn't fumble the ball.
A few mistakes, but realistically, he kept them in his play and decision making kept them in that game against the Cowboys team, who is notorious for turning the ball over.
Which they did. I mean, and this was what we feared with Dak Prescott too. Was
no, I meant on defense. They turned the ball over.
Oh no, of course, but I mean, you want to go talk about turnovers. Dak Prescott, he 5 touchdowns accounted for against Tampa Bay, and in this game, he was the Dak Prescott. He was the Jekyll and Hyde Dak Prescott, where those 2 picks, and it just did not look good. It's the George Kittle juggle catch that set up the touchdown drive was immaculate. I don't know if it was as good of a catch as everyone's saying that it is. I mean, the concentration is incredible, but it did the job. This San Francisco team just did not make the mistakes that you would expect of a Mr. Irrelevant type pick. What I think is interesting, though, is that this is a big rivalry. And you know what? I don't know. Like Justin said, we weren't sure what the San Francisco team was because, they flew under our radar a little bit. But this big rivalry in the last 2 years in the playoffs has come down to 2 very terrible play calls by Dallas in the last 2 years. Last year, it was the draw play and the run with no timeouts and 10 seconds to go in the game, which was utterly stupid. And then this year, what we refer to in the title of this episode as the Texas play call massacre. I mean, it's bad enough that you line up the way that you did, and San Francisco calls a timeout because they don't know what they're doing. That's the time to go to a regular offensive setup, not run the exact same play that you were trying to run the last time.
Well, I'm just so curious to know what their intention was to do with it, because obviously that wasn't it. Like Zeke being in there as an ineligible player to me screams lateral. Like,
oh, absolutely,
you want Zeke to get the ball in space with blockers coming up the sidelines, something like that. But obviously, clearly it was terrible. I mean, they threw the ball to CD Lamb against the top defense in the league, and he was immediately plastered.
No, it wasn't even Lamb. It was Turpin.
Yeah,
a guy who doesn't even play offense most of the time.
Yeah,
is all of a sudden because he's a fast guy. He's too fast for your offensive lineman. The play failed because he ran too far ahead in front of them.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting to see what they were thinking. I don't know if we'll ever know. I can't imagine they're gonna let us know until maybe the coaches retire or something like that, and we get like one of those fun interviews afterwards, like, yeah, man, that was terrible. This is what we wanted. But like that play call was just so.
It was bad.
There's nothing. It's the funny thing is, if that would have worked, people would have put Mike McCarthy in the Hall of Fame. Like it would have been like, oh, he's revolutionizing the sport. He got the Cowboys back to the NFC Championship game for the first time in 30 years. He's going to be the hero. The Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl. And instead, it's like Mike McCarthy coming back might not be the best decision, and it looks like he's playing Madden.
Well, see, so here's the parallel that I have. The Philly special in the Super Bowl is now like a play that every team tries to run.
Love it.
Because
I try and call it something else too.
I know. So, right, if that play had worked, then you would have at some point seen Elijah Vera Tucker line up as a wide receiver for the Jets because they were trying to do it their own way. Or, John Feliciano with the Giants is the one who's getting the lateral and handing it off because he's in the slot. Like, the Philly special worked the one time, and now it's just like, it's like the Wildcat. Like, we've seen it too many times.
It's continued to work. There are lots of teams that have executed it for touchdowns, 2-point conversions, things like that since then.
Yeah. This formation this is the one time. This is like the onside kick to start the second half of the Super Bowl. It works one time, and you've used up your one time that it works.
Yeah.
Well, but it didn't work one time.
Well, if it did. I was going to say, if it did.
Yeah.
You would see every team trying to run this. The Texans would run it every single play because they're terrible.
Well, they don't have much talent to be able to run much.
Exactly.
So,
Laremy Tunsil.
Yeah, like can we just point out the comedy of the 49ers calling the timeout and D'Amico Ryans and then basically saying, like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, that's basically what they were saying without saying it. It's like, are you really sure you want to do this? They gave them a second chance. They gave them an out.
That's good play. That's just good defensive, coaching.
No, but I'm saying, like, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying there is a comedy to it.
No, I know. But like you're saying, like it's like giving that was the Niners saying we're not going to be beat by something that we don't necessarily understand.
Right. Yeah,
it was like page 18 in their playbook, and they were scrambling to get there, and they couldn't get there in time, so the timeout we didn't get here to the end.
Yeah.
This
goes up. Make sure you have your assignments. The second that ball hits someone, you're hitting that someone. That's it.
Zeke Elliott
was over. You're not going to get fooled. You're not going to get tricked. Make sure you know your assignments.
And I love how it's like, oh, we weren't expecting the pressure because Ezekiel Elliott, got blocked and shoved to the ground. Then what's the point of playing defense if you're not expecting pressure? Like, hello?
Again, that brings me back to my first point is, was that designed to have that kind of pass play to that guy, or was it something else entirely that we'll never know? Like,
I mean, you're assuming the Cowboys really knew what they were doing.
Like, even a prevent defense still has two guys rushing. You know what it was? It was the Chuck Pagano punt formation all over again. You remember that one? And what did they do? They tried to sneak with like all the wings and one offensive lineman. And the Patriots were like, "What the hell is this?" And they tackled poor Austin Collie for a 2-yard loss. It's like,
was it Austin Collie? I don't think Austin Collie was on the team anymore.
So whoever it was. But the point of the matter is like there's being innovative and there's being cutesy. And when you're too cutesy, like Kevontae Turpin found, you catch the ball and immediately get decked, and the game ends.
Rick, can we call it cutesy if that play design was just uglier than anything that's ever walked this earth?
Well, ugly ducklings have some cute factor in them at some point. So, I mean, that play was like the ugly duckling.
But baby ducks are adorable. That play was not adorable.
Yes, but there's one ugly duckling in the litter, and that's the ugly duckling.
Rick's right. You want to win by being creative, not by being tricky.
Right.
Well, they failed on both ends.
Tricky is not something that lasts. Tricky is, I got you once, you'll know next time. Creative is, we're going to show you a bunch of different things, and you have to stop us multiple ways. Well, tricky teams don't win Super Bowls. I mean, even like Wildcat offense, that's tricky. That's not creative play calling. You know what I mean?
There's a reason why they're called trick plays, because if you run them all the time, they're called plays.
Yeah. Great analysis there. At the end of it, a Cowboy season collapses yet again. Mike McCarthy got out-tacticianed by Kyle Shanahan yet again. Ezekiel Elliott failed to show up in the playoffs
again.
Yet again. What am I missing here? Dak Prescott threw 2 interceptions in a playoff game.
Again.
He's probably done it before. Just a a hard. Can we call it a hard?
It was a close game.
No, I'm trying to think of the proper term because I don't call it heartbreaking because you didn't
Disappointing.
lose. Yeah, better word. Disappointing end to the season.
It's just a description of the Cowboys' last 30 years.
Very true. Very
exactly. True. Because again, if once on offseason, it looks like they're running it back with the same crew,
which is a terrible decision.
Right. I mean, kudos to Dan Quinn. I think he knew that if he went to any head coaching position, he would not fare well. But
there weren't a lot of great opportunities.
Right. Does Dan Quinn staying basically mean they're going to keep McCarthy? Because if here's the thing, if Sean Payton has his staff that he's taking with him, you can't keep anyone on your staff. Yeah, it's already decided.
Yeah.
If Dan Quinn is returning, it's already decided.
So,
and if it's not already decided, and Sean Payton comes and they decide to keep their own staff, then I feel bad for Dan Quinn because that's the guy that just gave up several head coaching opportunities.
Can he just, if it happens soon enough, can he just change his mind?
What kind of team is going to take the guy that just told him that he doesn't want the job?
Yeah,
the kind of team that's like, hey, we wanted you in the first place. Sure, come now.
I don't see it. I would assume that they put their eggs in other baskets.
Look. As someone who's dealt with rejection many times in life, I'm willing to give a second chance if it's the right person. Just say. Anyways,
I'll never reject you here, Jared.
Well, debatable. I think Rick is getting closer day by day. All right. Anyways, moving on from that. That was our complete analysis of the divisional round. Before we get to the final part of the show, which I know that people are waiting for, a very brief. I think we've done all the breakdown analysis possible for these games, but let's just quick recap for everybody. Tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, on Sunday, it is conference championship. Okay, technically be called a weekend if both games are on one day.
Well, yeah, I mean, theoretically it can be. Yeah, it is over the weekend.
Today is part of AFC, NFC, NFL championship.
You mentioned in the intro that it's the weekend, so of course it's conference championship weekend.
All right.
Continuity.
You and your semantics. Anyways, the 49ers and Eagles take each other on 3 p.m. tomorrow on Fox, and the Bengals and Chiefs take each other on 6:30 p.m. on CBS. Currently, this won't affect the analysis, I don't think, but the lines are as follows from our friends at
Caesar Sportsbook.
Thank you. He doesn't get muted.
I don't want to get in trouble again.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So
no more joking.
The Eagles are currently favored by 2.5, and the Chiefs are currently favored by 1.5. So very small margins for both home teams that are number one seeds into this. The 14-3 Eagles, the 13-4 49ers, the 12-4 Bengals, and the 14-3 Chiefs. Now, last week we ended the show giving our Super Bowl predictions. I believe I had Chiefs 49ers, if I'm not mistaken. Justin had Chiefs. No, excuse me. Did you have Bengals 49ers, or what was your matchup? Bengals 49ers. And Rick had, I just don't remember.
The Bills and the 49ers.
Oh, okay. So clearly that's out. So this is more unique for Rick now. Here.
It is.
We all agree it's a sweep for the 49ers for our analysis. I think for the most part, we're expecting that this 49ers defense is going to take control of this game and that they're going to make the extra play or two that even if the Eagles defense tried, it's going to be an interesting game between these two teams, to say the very least. It's two very strong defensive units where the pass rush on both teams is strong. I think the linebacking core, I would give the slightest of edges to the 49ers. Well, maybe not even slight because Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw are monsters. And then the defensive back crew, of course, you give that advantage to the Philadelphia Eagles. That defensive back crew, like at least two guys on that back crew are getting paid this offseason for the year they had. Whereas with the 49ers, that offense, with all the explosiveness that they have, we already broke down basically how both teams run their offenses, I think, for the most part. We're just giving it to the 49ers based off of a couple of X factors. I would assume Kyle Shanahan versus Sirianni. It's going to be a good one, to say the very least. I think we all agree there are high expectations for that NFC Championship game to deliver. Similar to the AFC title game. Anything I'm missing before we move on to the AFC, or no?
Honestly, I picked the 49ers. I would not be surprised if the Eagles won.
Oh, no, I think we all agree. Like we said it earlier, this is the best Final Four of teams that we've had in a very long time in history. I'm sure Rick is going to
every year there's like a big upset. There's someone that you're like, wow, I can't believe they made it this far. They're having a great run. This year, it's like, oh yeah, this is who we. To
be fair, though, I mean, Brock Purdy has had a great run. I don't think we anticipated that.
The Niners,
team wise, I agree, but like the guy leading them is a surprise.
Yeah. So
I guess, but again, it's not a Cinderella story by any means.
Not really.
As far as the team. Yeah.
So that's the 49ers and Eagles NFC title game. Rick, this mainly applies to you because technically we're locked in. Me and Justin have picked the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So
no, Justin picked the Bengals.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually funny because earlier this week, because of the Mahomes injury, I actually on a different podcast picked the Bengals as my AFC champions. So I'm also very torn with this.
You guys are not loyal.
I win either way. That's all that matters to me.
And when you're loyal, you're wrong
Rick.
with the Washington Commanders. So,
Rick,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Rick,
Yes.
this all falls to you. You're
Yes.
the one that needs to make a definitive pick here. Because I made the Chiefs pick on this show, so I will stick to this show, not other shows. I will stick with the Chiefs. Bengals, Chiefs, who will face the 49ers in the Super Bowl?
It's so interesting because this line's fluctuated from earlier in the week. It was even. It was a pick 'em because Mahomes' injury status was questionable.
Actually, the Bengals were favored at one point.
Yeah. And so it's very unpredictable. But that being said, and everything, all things being equal here, you gotta think that Cincinnati is just a much better team. I mean, if you look at the two games they played in the playoffs, in the first game, they played Baltimore and were able to quell their running attack. In the second game against Buffalo, they were able to quell the passing attack. I think Cincinnati's a more complete team. And I'm looking forward to a rematch of a Super Bowl from the 80s, not from the 2020s. So I'm going to stick with the Bengals. I'm going to pick Cincinnati on this one and let it be a San Francisco-Cincinnati Super Bowl in Arizona because we can't have nice things.
What a stick in the craw it could be to any Cardinals fan that actually planning to go to that game. It's like, oh, San Fran's here. Nice.
Yeah, oh, great.
I do want to say one thing. I picked the Bengals. I believe the Bengals are going to win. I'm not changing. There's something to be said about all of the talk that you're hearing now out of Cincinnati, and you don't hear a word out of Kansas City. And
right.
Part of that is scaring me.
Yeah.
It really is. Because you always hear, oh, Kansas City, blah, blah, blah. They're the best team. And kind of it's always been the opposite where Cincinnati's kind of just like quiet and like we're gonna show up, we're gonna do our thing. It's real quiet in Kansas City right now.
Well, does it also
all you hear is Cincinnati chirping?
Right. Doesn't it also, like, to you, Justin, because again, it was Chris Jones that said this. He called it at the end of a press conference, like, the NFL media availability.
So he said that because that it was like a thing in the Bengals locker room. It came through that everyone was saying like,
no, I know, but I'm not saying that to think that he's doubting like the team. I'm saying that, like, to your point.
Oh, that's him saying, yeah, we heard you.
Yeah, is this a quiet, like, this is the Chiefs basically saying, okay, I think you've all forgotten who exactly you are dealing with here.
Yeah.
This is the team that for the last 5 seasons, I made the comparison last week with the Astros and the AL. The AFC winner the last 5 years has either been the Chiefs or the team that beat the Chiefs in the AFC title game. The AFC runs through Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City. Mm-hmm. Now, is Joe Burrow trying to switch that up? Who knows? But like this I think is the ultimate testament. This is just it's not first, the second playoff battle. But this is going to be a new chapter in this, what we're hoping to be the rivalry of this generation between these two teams, like between the quarterbacks, between Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, the top 2 quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Who's going to win this? How many more times are they going to face off? What will this moment mark? Will this moment mark continue? Like how Peyton Manning fell behind Tom Brady in a lot of their early matchups?
That's exactly what I was going to say. This is seemingly Brady Manning too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like these are 2 AFC quarterbacks in separate divisions, guys that we'll never see in a Super Bowl matchup against each other. But
the AFC Championship game is pretty close.
Yeah. This is the second straight year they're meeting the AFC Championship game. They play blockbusters when it's a regular season game. They're the top 2 young quarterbacks in the league right now.
I think we could take off young there. I think we could just say top 2 quarterbacks at this point between the two of them.
The point is they're young and it'll be for the next few years.
And what's funny though about that is that when Brady and Manning were constantly facing each other, I know he only got to 1 Super Bowl, but you had Drew Brees in the other conference who was also going toe-to-toe record-wise. If Jalen Hurts and Philadelphia do get to the Super Bowl and they do win, that could open the door for Jalen Hurts being like the third guy and like the other guy you got to watch. Because, Josh Allen might fall by the wayside, but you can talk about Jalen Hurts possibly being that third guy. So,
I mean, I would give it to Josh Allen at the moment. I know that he's more comparable. Hurts is maybe a little more comparable to Drew Brees, just like stature-wise and style of play. But I would probably give it to that third quarterback has to be Josh Allen because he's also like I think he'll win a Super Bowl maybe eventually, but like he is that third guy. He's like that extra wheel.
That's a lot of think maybe. That's a lot of.
Well, I mean, that's what Drew Brees was. Like Drew Brees was excellent for so many years, especially with the Saints. And it was like, yeah, we think he'll probably win one, and then eventually he did.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, look, all fair. I think we've said it earlier. I don't think we can echo this point home enough. Geez, whether it's Chiefs Eagles, Chiefs Niners, Bengals Eagles, Bengals Niners, we're getting a hell of a Super Bowl matchup that you can make all the storylines you want. With Chiefs 49ers rematch, with Chiefs Eagles, these are two teams who have both won the Super Bowl very recently. With Bengals Eagles, this is a hungry franchise that's never won versus a team that had the success, but the quarterback is different from the last time they were there, and the head coach as well. A head coach that was very much maligned at the start of his tenure, who has really turned things around in Philadelphia. Got to give Nick Sirianni the credit for that. Obviously, guys were added to help him, but he's done a pretty good coaching job in and of himself. Might be the coach of the year because we will learn the NFL award winners. Are we going to know by next week or the week after?
The NFL honors are, I think, Super Bowl week.
Okay. So that answers that question. But, and then Bengals 49ers is a very historical matchup. Those are two teams that have made the Super Bowl before. But again, Bengals against each other, but the Bengals never won the Super Bowl going up against their NFC West demons versus the 49ers, who I know you said, Rick, like there is the legacy. They're one of the legacy franchises. They have the cachet, but it's been a long time in between drinks. And we've said it over the last 2 to 3 seasons that, yes, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have done an amazing job, but there's got to be pressure from ownership that they need to get it done at some point. Like, it's nice to make it to the Super Bowl. It's nice to make it to now back-to-back NFC Championship games. I think the third time in 4 years to the NFC Championship game together. They need to break through and finish the job, especially Kyle Shanahan for his legacy. But, there's so many stories. I'm saying it. We have never had a Final Four where the pressure, the emotion, the stories are, and even the level of play, I think, is at this caliber, no matter what the matchup is between any of these teams.
Where would like a Marvin Lewis of championship games be rated all time? Like he made it to 7 straight championship games.
My God!
But did he lose them all?
Yeah.
That supersedes the point that I was going to make about the Niners winning their last championship. They beat Stan Humphries. That's all you need to know. Which, by the way, incidentally, that was the first 2-point conversion in Super Bowl history was in that game. The Chargers brought that to the Super Bowl, and now we can never look back.
It's killing all of my Super Bowl trivia weeks.
You'll come up with plenty. Come on.
Yeah, I'm sure there's other questions I can ask, right?
What was the first field goal hit off the left upright in Super Bowl history?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
When did the Super Bowl logo take a complete downhill turn into being creative?
Well,
because
that's an opinion question.
No, it's not an opinion. The Super Bowl logo is trash, and I'll say right now, it's been trash for years. But anyways, we move on. While I give my own mini rant topic there, we know that there is somebody specific on the show that is a master, you could say, in the rant. Rick, take us home.
Well, gentlemen, Novak Djokovic does not listen to my rant segment because he's in the Australian Open final tomorrow. And I said, let somebody else win a tennis tournament for Christ's sake a while back. But clearly, he's decided not to. But that's not where I'm going. Number 3 for me on the rant podium this week is NASA. Now, why is NASA on the rant podium this week? Did you guys know that there was an asteroid that was making the closest pass to Earth in recent years? And it wasn't going to hit Earth. There was no danger. But NASA only told us about it a couple days ago. The asteroid was first discovered by not even a Russian, astronomer, a Crimean astronomer. So, that puts a lot of confidence for me in NASA's ability to find the planet killer asteroid that's going to hit us in 10 years, maybe. I don't know, Nostradamus. But, by the way, about 2 weeks ago, an asteroid passed by about 5 miles from Nantucket. But don't worry, it didn't hit anything. What? Hello? Your job is to find these things and destroy them, or tell us, hey, listen, this is passing by, just so you know, no big deal, so we can carry on our lives. But why didn't you tell us sooner? I don't know. NASA, I'll revoke your funding as soon as this episode's over. If I was the president, that's just me. Anyways, moving on. Number 2, there's been a topic of discussion about this thing called Chat GPT. It's a chatbot that was launched by OpenAI back in November. And, well, they decided, let's see if maybe this thing can, help people, in law school or whatever the case is. So, this is like AI and the robots and everything. So they tested this robot at Harvard Law School and at the University of Minnesota Law School. Now, side question. Minnesota has a law school? That's surprising to me. But regardless, the headline is the robot passed the exams. Good. It got a C+ at Minnesota. I can get a C+ on a law exam. You're no damn better than I am. Like, hey, robot developers, back to the drawing board for you, because this ain't working out, guys. It's not. Like, why? Why is this a thing? Why is this a problem? Now, just stop it. Like, this is the beginnings with Skynet and Terminator taking over everything. Just enough. I don't need more Arnold Schwarzenegger in my life. I already have one. One is plenty. Thank you very much. Number 1, I have a 1A and a 1B, gentlemen. I have a tied for number 1. At 1B, you young people of society who are all over your social media, because clearly, if you see the photos from the assistant AD of communications at Loyola Chicago, you would know that the Uber Eats delivery driver was a pranker trying to get on YouTube and TikTok for views. Now, let's play the scenario, gentlemen. I'm going out to the corner for a 3. I bump into the Uber Eats delivery guy. He drops his soda. I slip and fall and crack my ankle, thereby damaging my number 1 overall pick. All because this guy, this stupid idiot, wanted to get TikTok love and views. And how do you know this? Well, a clearly close-up video had the guy wearing a microphone and had people in the crowd like taking photos and videos of him. Like, oh, look at this guy. Like, he's trying to get famous. Stop trying to be famous. It's not working. You are pathetic. And, enough. Because clearly the guy went back to his seat. So it was a prank job. But, like, why? Why is this? This is worse than the Dallas Cowboys play call last week. Like, this is stupid. And 1A, I am not a Rangers fan. I am not a Knicks fan. But I am a fan of somebody who is basically an absolute jerk and a moron getting their just desserts from me. As you know, I've yelled at Adam Rank plenty of times on this podcast. Belgium and I have come to an understanding, so we're good there. Wales and I are best friends. But that will not be the case for James Dolan, because essentially what happened is there's a lawsuit going on about the facial recognition technology that they're using at MSG and at Radio City Music Hall, which is owned by Dolan as well, that if you have tickets, you need to have your face scanned to show, oh, you're the person that bought the tickets or whatnot. The lawsuit from the New York State Attorney General has basically forced Dolan to say, this is my private place, and you people who are suing me, you're no longer welcome here. You're banned until the lawsuit is dropped. Who made you God, James Dolan? First of all, Charles Oakley is better than you in every capacity. I think James Dolan is maybe the worst owner in all professional sports and still has a job at this point. Like, we got rid of some bad ones. We came rid of this guy who was the most asinine, buffoonish jerk. Like, I will never, and I don't know why people would, go to these games and pay the money for this man to find his pockets. Like, you are a disgrace in all capacities. You are a meddling owner of the Knicks, a passive owner at best of the Rangers, and why are you being such a stuck-up jerk about this? Like, you know you're wrong, so just fess up and say you're wrong. And don't be a controlling, mind idiot jerk about all of this. Don't be Jeff Bezos, although the two of you could probably share the same circle of hell if you want to. It's fine, whatever. Just stop. People want to go enjoy sports or enjoy the Rockettes. They don't want to have their face scanned because, oh, you bought these on a resale website. What's the point? I bought the tickets. I'm going to this thing. Would you rather me not go and have empty seats? How about your Knicks play in an empty arena next time? Or your Radio City Rockettes dance for nobody? That's basically what's going to come down to at this point, because you're just a meddling owner who's terrible at his job. like Adam Rank is terrible at his job. And like anybody who's ever stepped into a Dunkin' is terrible at life. Now, I do want to have one last quick story about Dunkin' here. I'm a bit of a hypocrite in this capacity.
He got food.
No, wait. When I was in college, back in 2009, 2010, 2011, I would go on the radio show, the morning show that I would go to in Hofstra, and I would be up at like 6 in the morning for the show. So I needed to, when I was younger, get a little pep in my step. So I would always get a wheat bagel with strawberry cream cheese and a large iced coffee, light and sweet. Unfortunately, at the time, I didn't know how good 7-Eleven coffee was. So the only place I could go was the Dunkin' on the corner of Hempstead Turnpike and California Avenue. Well, my heart sang recently when I found out that location had closed down for good. I was the happiest little clam. I almost pulled my car off the road, went to the front door, and kissed the front door in sheer effigy and excitement that place closed down, because I've learned so much more that Dunkin' is horrible. And it just made my day. It made my week. It made my month. It was amazing. Do I feel bad for the people that used to work there? Sure. But the fact that location closed down, chef's kiss. So happy about it. And to 18-year-old me, if you're watching this in some alternate universe, you can do better than a wheat bagel and strawberry cream cheese from Dunkin' Donuts. You can do better than that.
See, but Rick, if you had never gotten the wheat bagel with strawberry cream cheese, you would have never met me and Justin. I'm sure there's a time paradox in that somewhere. You know, like when you move a chair and everything just goes to hell.
No, I still would have met you, but I probably would have had like, an eye patch over this eye or a gold tooth or something like that.
I mean, of all the things in the world, being happy that a Dunkin' location closed down, I think that might be a new one for the Rant Podium. I was going to make the joke. I wanted to make the joke. I always wanted to try to wait if I can for the Rant Podium. Like when it came to the robot in Minnesota, Justin, did you think the punchline was going to be, how could the robot get a C+ on a Minnesota law exam specifically? Like from that state?
What did it get on the Harvard one?
Yeah,
a B-.
Did it really?
Yeah.
So is Minnesota better than Harvard for law?
So apparently, according to what the test makers were saying, is that practical knowledge the robot can understand, but anything more deeply critical thinking, it can't. So it chooses an answer that it thinks is the best one. Like, do you remember Jeopardy many years ago when they had the IBM computer Watson playing against the two champions?
Yeah.
Watson missed some questions because it just selected what it thought was the best answer. So I guess critical thinking is not really where the robot's strength is, but then why do this? Why not wait until you know that it's fully there? Or how about this? Abandon all hope for the robot projects. Because now we're just going into craziness. We're going into AI, artificial intelligence, and iRobot, who are two horrible movies. So, avoid that at all costs.
I mean, if there's anything that has been proven that society overall doesn't listen to history, and society overall will definitely not listen to all the robot movies that end this basically the same way.
They won't listen to me either, which is very disconcerting. But I'm still going to rant about stuff anyways because
exactly.
Yeah.
They will one day listen to you, Rick, and I hope that you've all enjoyed listening to. I think probably the longest episode we've had sans the 3-round mock draft that we had way back when. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this extravaganza. Obviously, so much news to talk about. It's probably gonna. I mean, we only got 2 games to talk about last week. We're gonna save the Super Bowl stuff for the week after in terms of our proper final thoughts, predictions, all that, etc. Probably just baseline things. We could have some fun next week. I think we're gonna start to slowly go into the lane of talking about the off season, some more rumors that have happened so far that we haven't addressed, but are sure to come up over the coming weeks and months. And over the next coming weeks and months, calm down. Take a step back. The NFL season might be over, but the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast will never leave you. We are here for our first full and proper off season soon enough, once the Super Bowl is over. And we want all of you to know we can't wait to join that journey, for you to join that journey along with us. Thank you all so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. For myself, Justin, Podfather Rick, thank you all so much. I'll see you guys next week.